What was that? I imagine you don't tell that story very often. What was that like, reliving through that for a few minutes?
Kind of having a conversation with your younger self of like, hey, like, I just want you to know that, like, I'm there for you, you know?
Jake Caffee. Today, he's here to explore all of it. Family, fitness, failure, redemption, relationships, music, masculinity, and meaning.
I'm underwater. I'm not treading. I'm not swimming. I'm under. All these eyes on me, you know, and I'm only like 20 years old. So, and I'm coming from a small town. I've never had this pressure.
Are you happy?
I am. Is talking to God, reading a Bible? Is it closing your eyes in prayer? Is it screaming in the car?
I asked Troy to write you a letter, Jake. Seeing the change of your heart over the past few years has been such a gift. All right, my friend, are you ready for your first podcast?
I am ready.
Here we go.
Sweet.
Howdy, y'all, and welcome to David's Saturday Night Sitback. I am David, your host, and almost 3 years ago, I started this podcast having no idea what it was going to be about or who my target audience was going to be. After the first 12 episodes came out, I was approached by a 17-year-old in the gym who told me that at the young age of 16 years old, he was so miserable that he tried to take his own life. He's alive, thriving, and joining the military as we speak, but it was at that moment that I knew exactly what this podcast was going to become. I am on a mission to find hidden gems in Austin, Texas, and give them a platform with one mandate: to tell personal stories that'll light the internal fire within the audience so that you can have a candle in the darkness as you navigate the dark night of your soul. My end game for the podcast is that one day I have thousands of emails from people all over the world telling me how these stories have given them the courage to take their dreams, turn them into goals, and turn that dream life into reality. That being said, if today's episode impacts you, email your story to sitbackwithdavid@gmail.com. With that in mind, let me introduce you to my new friend who is sitting back with me today. Imagine that you're in your 20s, sitting across from your closest friends, talking about life not like it is, but like it could be. You want more than just weekend plans and surface-level small talk. You want to lead, to love deeply, to build something meaningful, maybe a family, a faith, a body of work. You want to be someone your future self would be proud of. You're curious about the biggest questions: what happens after we die, how people change, how to forgive others and yourself. You're drawn to conversations that challenge your beliefs. You're not afraid to admit that you've made mistakes, and you're hungry for the kind of transformation that can only come from grace, truth, and time. You've been misunderstood before, your confidence mistaken for ego, your depth hidden under first impressions. But those closest to you know you better. They've seen your loyalty, they felt your grace, they've watched you wrestle with your failures without losing your integrity. And that's the kind of man sitting back with me today. He's a former track champion and football player, a lover of Jimi Hendrix and Stoic philosophy, a student of faith and ideas, and someone who's not afraid to talk about tattoos or truth. He once took a leap of faith moving to Austin with no plan and trusted the process to shape him into who he's becoming. Today, he's here to explore all of it: family, fitness, failure, redemption, relationships, music, masculinity, and meaning. Jake Caffee, thank you for the gift of your time this morning. Thank you for who you are and what you bring to the table, and welcome to your episode on David's Saturday Night Sitback.
Thanks for having me, man. That was an amazing intro, groovy song, and man, I'm excited. I wasn't expecting all that. That's awesome.
Welcome to Podcast Land, as I affectionately and not so originally call it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me. I know we'd kind of started out as friends in the gym, talking about our machines and stuff like that, and a few months later, we're here. So excited to get into it and kind of hear what we want to talk about, where we want to go. So
you have a very good energy about you. When I talk to people about coming on the podcast, I look for eye contact, curiosity, general vibe, and for probably every 10 people I cold approach, I ask one or two to come on the pod, and there's just something about you where I was like, this is a guy that I want to dive deep with him. I want to see what he has to say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know. I mean, I'm a smiley guy. I try to be as nice and pleasant and open as I can be to kind of all the experiences that come my way. So hopefully we can get into something good, get into the juice.
Yes. Well, let's get the potentially the hardest question out of the way first. If you strip away job titles, things we could find on your LinkedIn, on your social media, things of that nature, who is Jake?
Who is Jake? So no job titles, no LinkedIn, nothing like that. I would say very, very aware, kind of individual, very not necessarily introverted. Something I've wrestled with. I've always thought I was kind of an introverted person, but when I'd be with all my friends, even like right now, I've kind of known you for a little bit, and I'd say I'm extroverted, but I think for me, it's like I have this level of kind of things that I struggle with on my own a little bit, but at the same time can get really comfortable. And when I kind of find that moment and I'm kind of aware of, these things around me, or I guess you could say more so, comfortable with the situation at hand, then I can kind of jump into it and give my opinions. And I feel like I have these crazy ideas. And I guess nowadays, a lot of people kind of have crazy ideas and stuff like that. And you wonder, like, what is this thing going on in my head? But, I try to be as graceful as I can. And I fail a lot. I fail quite a bit in day-to-day tasks, things that I tell myself I'm going to do, things that I want myself to do. Maybe I don't always get there, but again, try to give myself grace in those areas. I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I got anxiety, and I want everything to work well. So I think those kind of things can be really good for momentum in your life. They can be really good for, pushing yourself to do things, but at the same time, it can get a little hard when you're kind of competing one-on-one with the man in the mirror and y'all aren't really seeing eye to eye on things. So I'd say that's kind of me in a nutshell. But I love most all things. I love to laugh. I love to spend time with my friends and just get cool, get chill, find a vibe and kind of ride that.
I do love to laugh. I have a lot of comedians on, more so than any other genre of people, just because they're so much fun.
Yeah.
And I enjoy laughing. Do you want to know what Troy said about you when I asked him this question?
Yeah, I actually would like to know what Troy said about me.
Jake is a man of grace. In times when Troy has an opinion or perspective on something, he'll play devil's advocate on behalf of the person that Troy is forming an opinion on. The reason he's able to do this is because he's made mistakes, and so your expectations are lower than Troy's. You're very loyal. You desire something serious in relationships, religion. You want to chase something physical. You want to chase deep relationships. You want to be challenged and to be a better person while holding yourself to a higher standard.
That's beautiful. That's good stuff. Yeah. The funny thing about Troy and why he says that, and I'm a big storyteller, and I think on the podcast you'll start to realize when I talk, I like to tell stories. And Troy, so we had lived in this house on Boardwalk Court. It was me, Troy, two other guys, all my best friends. We were all in the same fraternity. And always, it was a daily basis. It was Sundays. Whenever the opportunity came, Troy was kind of on the go, but I'd find myself walking out. I was upstairs. We had kind of this little balcony, and I'd walk out and I'd see like Troy and maybe his girlfriend downstairs, and I didn't ever want to go downstairs. It's just like I wanted this kind of interaction or whatever, and I'd hear what they were talking about. Maybe he had just got back from church, or maybe something happened in the college or whatever, and he'd start telling me, and I'd just sit up the top, almost like kind of this judge, I'd put my hands right here, and what are you gonna say? What are you gonna say? And I would, and to your point, to go back, because I think out of everything you said, there's one thing that I wanted to harp on the most. I think when people, and I look at my mom when I think about this, we had kind of had a conversation that was very similar, with when you've been through things, and you kind of feel this darkness, or you feel this feeling inside that you can't get rid of, and then you're able to move past that in the ways that you do, or however that looks, and you come back to it and you see someone else kind of in a similar situation. It's like, I know I felt that pain, and I don't want you to feel that. Like, I want you to feel light of that situation, and that was something me and my mom would talk about a lot in kind of our hardships, but how can you effectively turn that hardship into a lesson, and then kind of pass that on to other people to kind of have light in darkness as much as you possibly can. And that was something I really took kind of through my trial and error times, especially in college, man. No one talks about the fact that when you're in college, right, you come in And everyone acts like it's this big deal. It's like you got out of high school, now you're in college. Like, what are you gonna do? You got to hit this GPA. You're gonna have these hard professors, and you got to study and study and study and study. It's like, that is not it, and that's not my view of college. My view of college is you take these 18-year-old kids, and you're gonna give them 4 years, and what it is. I mean, the studying comes naturally, and maybe not to all people, but studying at the end of the day, C's get degrees. Like, that was always kind of the thing, So
Yep.
it's not that serious, studying, and the professor's like, yeah, that's a side thing. It's not the whole thing. But now it's you have this freedom. You have that class at 9:10, and it's like, am I gonna go to it? Do I really need to go to it, or should I go maybe hit the gym instead and round out at Sabiza, the dining hall, or what do I want to do then? And that's kind of it's your own kind of finally away from home, and it's like, well, how are you gonna act, and what are the things you've learned to this point to kind of make it through these 4 years? And I really realized that super heavy on. You start kind of encountering these challenges, and back in the day in high school, maybe it wasn't that serious. I went to a small school, so it was never really that serious. And you just move on and move on and move on, and you're just sitting there thinking like, man, I don't have my dad here, my mom here. My sister can't help me with this outfit anymore. I'm super indecisive. So you start getting presented, and I say challenges. I don't even mean it as a really, really hard thing, but just these little things in your day-to-day. It's like, how can I do that? And over 4 years, when you become graduated or whatever, you look back and it's like, oh, I couldn't get up at 8 a.m. Like, that wasn't it. I didn't like the gym that much because I didn't understand any of it. And through these people and these things that I encountered, and these crazy nights at the bars with my friends, it's like you just learn so much and you pick up on so many things that you just never would have thought were that important to you and who you are and who you can become. So that was it's a huge thing for me.
How old are you right now?
I'm 23 right now, which is a shock to some, but
For those on Spotify and Apple, if you want to jump over to YouTube for a second, I'm going to show Jake a picture of himself when he was probably about 15 years old. So if you want to see it, jump over to the YouTube version for the next 5 minutes. Here's you.
Yeah, I remember this. That was me and my sister. She was a freshman in college, so we're 4 years apart. She was a freshman. That was my first ever college football game at Texas State. So I thought polo hat. The jersey, as you can tell, I was already a frat star early on. The Adidas shoes with the black socks. I mean, can't ask for more than that kind of a fit, man.
What's the biggest difference between this version of Jake and who you are now, outside of obviously age, strength, things of that nature?
I would say, and this is a hard one. Jake has always struggled with pride. Pride has been a big thing, A lot of the times, the ego, the confidence, and pride can all fall into one bucket, and they can all be differentiated within different buckets. I think at that time, and let me put you kind of a little deeper into a scenario, right? I went to a small school, so I mean, there's less than 70 kids in my graduating class. The class under that, there was 35. So you think, when we started playing football, for instance, and, sophomore, and we're doing all these things, and you're kind of you're feeling like that guy. I'm not going to sit here and say I was that guy, but you're feeling like that guy and stuff. And then, especially at that time, I'm coming into this college and I'm trying to kind of fit in and show them like, hey, I'm that guy. I'm getting into Texas A&M, and I'm the star, I'm a star football player, and this, that, and the other. And I'd say now I look back at it and it's like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? Like, it's not, I feel like it's not that. I'm a little less not so serious in my day to day and the way that I look at things. I think my mind is a little more opened. And of course, I'm a lot more aware of myself. So things I say, things I do. I remember that day, my mom, and I think about it all the time. I'm a guy who I just remember things and I kind of harp on them. My mom on that day had bought us tickets to go. So my sister, she was in something, I think it was like Bells or, it's something where she's helping out, with the game. And my mom was like, hey, we got on the field passes. If me and you want to go down there and, kind of see the football players and stuff, Well, at that time, I'm not planning on going to Texas State, and I'm that guy. So it's like, I'm not going to go down there and let the recruits see me and know that I'm just kind of here with my family and like whatever. And I said no. I was like, I don't want to go down there. I'd rather just hang out up here and we can watch the game. And I always look back and I'm like, that was my mom, kind of being like, I got this chance for you. I know you love football and we can go on the field at this D1 school. And my pride was like, no, I cannot let these kids know I'm not offered here and I'm just on the field just hanging out. Like, and so that's something that I look back on. It's, looking at it one way versus now when I look back at it, I kind of have a different taste in my mouth for how I would have handled those situations.
Were you born in Austin or in Texas, or where's home? Where is the school that you've been alluding to?
Yeah, so it's tricky. So, and it's a long story. So I was born in Rowlett, Texas, at the Lake Point Church, kind of right outside of Dallas, a little bit the outskirt towns. And I grew up in Royce City up until about third grade, and then my parents were kind of going through a divorce at that time. And in third grade, I moved to Honey Grove to live with my dad. Me and my sister lived with my dad. My grandparents were from that area, and he wanted to, of course, be closer to them. So we all moved up there. So that town, I mean, it's 2,500 people. My grandpa has been the mayor of it for like 13 years now because no one else wants to run and be the mayor. So he's doing that, but you'll drive through, you'll miss it. You'll see a gas station, think it's just a little stop. I mean, there's 2 gas stations and 1 Mexican restaurant in the whole town, and a Dollar General. So, and 1 Dollar General.
When you think about between when you were the age of 0 and let's say 16, if we look at life as a book and every day is a page, what do you think is one of the more critical pages that adds a lot of context to who you are today?
Critical pages. I would definitely say, and this is kind of where we're going to go into a little deep section, which I'm fine to do. I would say in that era of the 3rd and 4th grade, that was when, we were midway through our 3rd grade year at an elementary school in Royce City. So I remember it was going into spring break, and I remember the last day. And this girl, we're on the playground. Of course, I'm a third grade year old kid. And this girl like admits that she likes me or something like that, has a crush on me or whatever. And we go into spring break, and then, kind of stuff happens with my family, and it's going to be a lot more of a quick jump. And we kind of decide that we're going to move to Honey Grove right then and there. So then, it's like that happens on a Friday, a week passes, and then Tuesday morning, I'm starting at this new school. Well, at Royce City, it's a huge 5A. My mom she was a teacher there. She was a drill team coach, so I'd get a ride on like the buses with the football players. My cousin, he was a little younger at that time, but he was kind of going to be next up and coming as a football star there. So a lot of good things to look forward to, eating Chick-fil-A and watching Friday Night Lights on this nice charter bus to Texarkana or whatever to go play this game. And then I go to this school, and it's like the elementary, the middle school, the high school are all in the same campus. There's there's like barely any kids in my class. The hallways, there's, 3 total hallways in this elementary school. There's not a intermediate school that Royce City had. At Royce City, you could have options. It was like you could go to this school, or this school, all in the same district, depending on your neighborhood, whatever. So, it was just a real shock to me at that time of who I thought I was and what I kind of had this idea and mindset about myself. And then to go to this school, of course, this town that's a lot smaller, and, there's not a McDonald's for after school, and we can't just go over to, this rock wall right next door and kind of piddle around and shop. It was like we got to go an hour to Frisco just to buy some clothes for school. So for me, I took a hit there. And of course, I don't know why I did this, but I want to say within the first week, I don't know if it was the second day. I hope it wasn't the first day. I'm hoping it was later. It could have been. And I wore my Royce City Bulldog jersey that I had at the time. It was like a black, Royce City, number 10, whatever. And I remember we were in the PE, in the gym or whatever. And, when you're a kid, the biggest thing is like, how fast are you? Like that ants, they'll tell me everything about you, how fast you are. I just want to know how fast you are. And I remember just we're running these like sprints up and down the basketball court, and I'm in this line, and I pass these kids. They're like, oh, he's kind of, he's kind of fast. I think we played that school, whatever, and blah blah blah. Like, and I'm just sitting there like, you never played us, bro. We're 5A. Like, I don't know shit about this town. Like, you don't know me, bro. Like, whatever. So that, and then, I mean, having to develop new friendships, of course, at an age like that is tough because, you've grown up with these kids and, of course, middle school. But, I mean, that into third grade, I'm kind of coming in a weird time. And then fourth grade kind of picks up, fifth grade and so forth. And I'd say that was the blessing of Honey Grove was with 2,500 people, everyone knows everyone. My dad was the juvenile, director of juvenile services. So he was on my ass, like, if I have to arrest you, like, that's a bad look, So we're having to kind of watch out that way. My grandpa is a huge community guy. My grandma, same thing. So just a lot of eyes on you to kind of do it that way. That was pressure. But at the same time in the school, I had these teachers who knew my grandparents and they knew that I was a new kid and they wanted me to kind of be able to fit in better. And that was probably my favorite part. I feel like to this day, there's teachers that I look back on there and I'm like, I still know them and they still, are checking on me regularly. And I love that. So a lot of relationships that were developed in Honey Grove and a perspective, to go from big to small and see both sides of it really kind of helped me in my journeys, and kind of who I'm able to talk about with where someone went to school and kind of connect there, I guess.
I was on the opposite track where I went to a very similar school, slightly bigger town, but it was probably like 300 people in total between freshman and senior year, and I absolutely hated it. It was just gossip central, very cliquey. Is a Christian private school.
Okay.
And I begged my parents every year to please let me go to our local public high school. And finally, my senior year, they let me go. That school was 3,000 people, graduating class of 800.
Okay.
And dude, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was just people at the public high school just felt more real.
Yeah.
Like everyone at the private school seemed, if we're going to be blunt about it, it was a bunch of rich white kids for the most part. And then at the public school, you had everybody, people of different faiths, different upbringings, different ethnicities. Like it was so much fun.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. And where was that at?
Northern California, Sacramento.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. That's a good little spot too. And how did you end up, I guess, coming to Austin? At what point did you do that?
So back in July of 2022, I was at the gym and my boss, one of my old bosses saw me and he came up to me and he said, David, good to see you. What's going on with you? And my gut reaction was to say, or he said, what's new with you? My gut reaction was to say absolutely nothing. And I hated that answer. And it made me think of that quote, that most men die at 25 but aren't buried until they're 75.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just I'd heard that Austin had a really diverse group of people. And I knew I wanted to start a podcast. I knew I didn't want it to be over Zoom. I wanted it to be in person like what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And so out of nowhere, I just said, oh, I'm moving to Austin. I'm starting a podcast. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. And he said, when are you moving? I said, I don't know, soon.
Yeah.
And he said, what's the podcast going to be about? And I said, I don't know. And he said, I don't believe you. You're not going to do that. And that almost lit like a flame under me where I was like, I'm gonna prove this guy wrong.
Yeah.
So then I probably said it out loud to like 12 more people whenever I ran into someone and they asked me like, how's it going or what's going on? I just kept saying it over and over and over again. I'm gonna move to Austin, start a podcast. So that was in July of 2022. Fast forward to Christmas Day, and in that 4.5 month period, I sold, threw away, or gave away everything I owned. I put my dog in the passenger seat of my car. And December 26th, I drove out to Austin. February 24th, we recorded the first episode. April 1st of 2023, launched the first episode. And here we are today, 150 episodes in with people in 60 different countries and 600 cities listening. So
wow. Dude, that's crazy. You literally manifested it. You literally were like, no, fuck that. I'm going to manifest that. Yeah. Dude, that's rad. I feel like a lot of the times, and especially now, and with myself, it's so hard to do something like that with, this fear. And kind of nowadays it's like, well, what are you going to do? And how are you going to make money? And, you have all these eyes on you to kind of what they expect a perfect kind of life is. You know what I mean? So it takes such a courage to truly believe in yourself and then to push forward past that and say, no, fuck that. Like, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to be the only one that like has control over that. And I'm going to go get it done. So, I mean, that it says leapfold of the kind of person you are and the kind of drive that you have to get that done, which is amazing. I mean, that's something I continue to aspire and to really kind of let myself do more, to believe in myself a little more is what I would say. So I love that story.
Do you believe in yourself?
I don't. No, I don't. I mean,
why not?
I don't know. I think, like I said, I think it comes with this idea of kind of being a perfectionist, and I'm so scared to fail. I truly am scared to fail at things, and it's funny because most of the time I get it done because I'm driven and I want to succeed. And I want success so badly that if I fail, I'm like, that can't be an option for me. Like, I cannot fail. There's things to me that I feel like I have to do, places I feel like I have to go, almost an amount of money I feel like I have to make to be successful. And I think that kind of harps my view of just letting me do truly what I want to do in a sense. And I just get in my head, I get in my head and go back and forth that way, to just kind of push through and say, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to do it, to leave that comfort, I guess.
Why are you alive?
Why am I alive? I think I'm alive to spread love. I really think at the end of the day, there's a lot of different ways you could say that. I could sit here and say I'm alive to spread faith. I'm alive to be a good person. I'm alive to do this, that, and the other. At this point in my life, like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, dude. And I don't really know where I'm supposed to be. I don't know where I'm going to go. And I dumbed it down. I'm a huge guy of I saw this quote one time. It was like, live life simply, simplify your life. And like at the very basis of just connections of talking to someone when I go to HEB, when I go to the store, when I see my friends, when I wake up in the morning, my roommates, it's like, if you can just spread a little love and make everybody a little happy, it's like, that's a good life for me, like that's all you really need at the end of the day is like that positive mindset and to go that way. I think that kind of ties in a little bit with my perspective on kind of faith and stuff like that. But at the very base level of it that's what we're all supposed to do,
Do you talk to strangers very often?
I don't talk to strangers as often. I would say, for instance, like if I was in the office or, saw somebody and somebody like had like a lot of the times I have long hair, right? So yeah. A lot of people out of nowhere, it's, dude, I love your hair. Dude, I love your hair.
Which is just real quick. It's funny because regardless of the camera angle, you look bald.
Really?
Between the hat and the fact that your back is to that
really?
wall.
Yeah.
You anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So I have, kind of have that a lot. And of course there's times when strangers talk to you and I try to be in that mindset of like, oh, thanks, man. Like, I like your hair too. Whatever. You kind of try to create that conversation. But I think at the end of the day, it's like I'm a very time-oriented person, and it kind of shoots myself in the foot a lot of the time. And I'll like give you an example of my night routine. I think this is a perfect example of kind of the way I look at it, or my full day. So at 4:43 a.m., I'll wake up. At 4:50, I need to be wide awake. I need to get ready. Need to be to the gym by like 5:05, 5:10. I'll get there, do that. 6:20. 6:30 at the very latest, leave the gym, go home, get ready, eat, shower, fix my hair, get in the car, go to work, get there at 8 o'clock, go home, try to get there as fast as I can at 5:23, that's when I want to get home. Like that's my safe space. Get home 5:23, that's fine. Do that. I'll try to play my guitar, kind of spend some time there with myself from about 5:23 to 6. At 6, it's like, all right, we need to get up, go downstairs, cook some food. My roommate Marshall got off. He's downstairs, started talking to him. Maybe as I'm cooking, Caden walks in. We're doing that. By about 7:30, kind of depending on the vibe downstairs, I'm going to go back upstairs, either take a shower or whatever, and I'm just going to have that time to myself, and that's my day. So when I look at my day, let's say you're a stranger and I threw in, I'm going to go to Starbucks today. And I go to Starbucks and it's like I'm kind of on it. Like I it's a little past. I'm getting to 7:30, 7:35. I really need to start getting into the car. I need to go to work. And if you walk up to me in Starbucks, I want to have that conversation, but internally, it's like, you need to go the fuck to work. Like, you need to get up, go, 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 go. And it's always go, go, go for me. So I'm very kind of by a book of the things that I'm going to do. And I think some people might say, like, in a way that's a little more, I don't want to say selfish. I'm like looking for the word of kind of, I'm very focused on myself in that sense. And I don't mean it in a negative way, but it's very like, I feel like I have to be on this schedule. Maybe that's kind of like an anxiety thing or whatever. And if I don't meet those marks, then maybe some bad things will come. And if we had that conversation and I showed up at 8:15, no one would fucking know I pulled up at 8:15. They would just be like, "What's up? Hey, good morning." And it'd be the same day. But to me, I'm like, oh, I'm 15 minutes late. I'll ponder that for an hour, 2 hours until I'm able to kind of move past, onto the next thing.
Isn't that a sort of contradictory, though, to how you're supposed to spread love? If you don't take the time for people, then how are they going to know that that's why you're alive?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the battle right there, and it's weighing your cost kind of on the day-to-day, and the way that you're going to go about it. I think it's hard because you wonder this idea of love. It's loving other people, and then there's some days when it's like, I don't feel like I really love myself today. Like I woke up kind of on the wrong side of the bed and I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to push through. And then, like you said, kind of Troy early in the conversation, that's like a question I'd line up for Troy on a 5:30 drive home. It's like, hey man, like I feel this way and I'm so consumed in myself to make sure that I'm meeting these goals and hitting this success, meeting these marks, because I think there's a certain level of discipline you have to have there to just make sure you're getting things done. But at the same time, it's like you do want to do that, Today's a great example. I had yesterday was a shit show, almost. So because I had that, I had a wedding I was in from this whole fucking month has been crazy. Let me just back it up, beginning first weekend, I have this engagement party in Houston for a friend. I love him, want to see him, go, have a great time. The next weekend, from Saturday to Wednesday, I'm at a wedding in Seaside. Love it. Great wedding. Amazing. Love seeing everybody. And then I get back and it's Thursday, Friday. Well, it was kind of a hard week. It's not going the best. So Thursday, I'm trying to kind of catch up and get things done. But I'm still not hitting my daily, kind of goals I have because I'm so overwhelmed. And I do that Thursday night. I'm like, dude, I'm going to sleep early. I get in my bed at 6:30. I'm like, I need some time to just sit with myself for a little bit and kind of sit with this feeling. And then Friday kind of comes around. All right, we just got to coast through Friday, whatever. Well, about 4:30 comes. And if you know me, man, you got to put it on my schedule. I'm at kind of a point in my life where it's like, I got a lot of things going on and I really need you to give me some notice. Just so I can tell myself internally for a little bit, that's what I'm going to do. And about, 4:30, my friend Lucas calls me and he's like, hey man, I'm coming to Austin, and you want to get dinner? Well, I hadn't worked out that morning. So, I have this big race next week and I'm like, yeah, I'm totally down, whatever, but I got to go lift tonight. It's a big lift for me. I've been on this wedding. I really need to kind of get back to the basics. So, really it's going to look like 7:30, 8 o'clock, but I'll be there, but I might be late, but I'll be there. I want to see you, but I'll be there. I just have to do these things. That's kind of where that discipline, but you're kind of on that balancer. So then he starts texting me, where are you trying to go? Where do you want to go to eat? What about this place? What about this place? Hey man, I'm at work right now. I have 30 minutes of my day, just 30 more minutes. And can I call you? And I'm like, all right. I'm going to call you really quick. I'm going to go in this room, call him. And of course, him and all my other two friends, I don't know what they're doing at 4:30 on a Friday, but they're all like, where are we going? And whatever. My friend's coming off a happy hour. And in my head, and just for insight, I signed a lease for a new apartment on Friday. So I just got finished with all this bullshit of an application that you have to do to fucking live in an apartment. All this bullshit you have to do and these documents, and I didn't know you had to do all that. It's my first time. So I'm kind of just internally just so wired up, and I just had to hang up the phone. I was like, we're not getting anywhere. I said, give me 30 minutes. I'll call you back, but that's it. And I put my phone in do not disturb. He's texting me, what about this place? What about this place? My other friend texts me and he's like, hey man, like, sorry about that. Like, you know, they're coming off a happy hour or whatever. And I'm like, listen, I was like, I've had a long week. I got back from this wedding. It's been a hard kind of adjustment. I said, I cannot even think right now with all the thoughts that are going on in my head about this furniture for the new apartment and all this stuff and kind of hitting my metric for the week and yada, 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 yada. I was like, I just need to finish this day. I need to go to the gym. I just got to do that. Like, I have to kind of do that. And he's like, yeah, no worries, whatever. Well, I go to the gym and eventually, hey, I wrapped up early. I go over there and it all works out. And it's a great dinner and we talk and it was really fun. But you would have thought I was going to fucking die within that last, like, few minutes because I'm just like, dude, I cannot. My brain is fucking everywhere, and maybe it's this caffeine intake that I have too much, but I'm just like, man, and that's the thing is I look and I'm like, does everyone go through this? Like, is everyone doing the same thing? I see these people are so chill in their day to day. There's this guy, Nick, at work, and oh my God, he's the chillest guy. And he walks in, what up, Beast? Just what up, Beast? Saying what's up to everybody. He's just sitting back on his laptop, just chilling, and I'm just like, is this guy not fucking panicking like I am? Or maybe he's controlling that panic. Maybe he understands it's not that serious, where maybe that's stuff that I got to kind of learn a little bit better in that department. And I think that's the battle for me is why am I prioritizing some of these things? Why am I on such a timeline all the time when I could just say, hey, like, whatever. Like, I'm such a go with the flow guy, and internally I'm screaming. You know, there's so much chaos inside me. For no reason, you know, just because, and I'd want to say that that's the perfectionist of you have to be perfect and on this time slip, but it just kind of becomes, you know, a lot at times, and I have to bring myself back down. And then Saturday we're at the bars and we're feeling a lot better. There's not that pressure there, and I'll talk to every stranger at the bar. You know what I mean? It's super easy, whatever. And then you go through this Monday through Friday, and I'm back in this. I need to do these and get to the finish line, and then I can kind of open up and then be myself when all that stuff is done, you know. That's a tangent, but it was a tangent.
Well, I'll tell you two things. First, one thing that I've never told anyone except for my buddy Tyler is I've been seeing a therapist for about 8 weeks now, and every Wednesday at 11 o'clock I say it's my hour to cry.
Yeah.
I generally don't cry that much, but we have just been talking about even this last Wednesday, within like 4 minutes of showing up, I was in tears again.
Yeah.
And it's been so nice because I feel like that hour with Evan sort of helps me keep my sanity throughout the rest of the week because I have that outlet now where I can go yell or scream or cry or, you know, so you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not uniquely faulted.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to mention about sort of to wrap up the idea of your mission of spreading love and talking to strangers and everything we're talking about and wondering if other people go through things is there's a guy that I met very similarly to you where I was thinking about approaching him about coming on the podcast. And for some reason in my gut, there is something that just said like, this guy's a fucking asshole. Like you wouldn't want him on your podcast.
Yeah.
He's not nice. He's not friendly. Like he just had this like air of like arrogance to him. And fast forward about 45 minutes, and he walked up and was on a machine right next to mine. And there was something inside of me where it was just like, just ask him what he would talk about if he came on the podcast. And so I introduced myself and said, sorry for interrupting your workout. My name's David. I hold this podcast. This is what we talk about generally. If you came on, what would you talk about? And he said, dude, I'm not in any shape to go on a podcast right now. He said 11 months ago, my dad killed himself. And 2 months ago, my mom died of a heart attack. And I had read him completely wrong. I thought he was an asshole. This guy was just in an enormous amount of pain that was giving off like a weird energy that I couldn't read unless I talked to him. And now we're buddies. We worked out yesterday and we didn't talk about his parents at all.
Wow.
But I just feel like someone like you has such a good energy about you that you could run across people like that who
Yeah.
need that positive, healthy, loving person in their life.
Yeah.
But if you're so on the clock with, I need to get to work, I need to get out of the Starbucks, I need to go home, I need to play the guitar. What if you're missing out on, a potential wife, a potential
Yeah.
friend, a potential workout buddy because you're sticking so strictly to your timetable. So I just wonder, if you need to get away from that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think there's times that, and of course, I've always had this idea of discipline and doing it that way, and there is a freedom in just kind of being open to whatever and just being like, I'm gonna do whatever, and kind of live that life that way. And I mean, to your point, it's so hard, when you're talking to people and you kind of read them one way, and of course I work at a big company, so you see a lot of people a lot of the time, all day kind of long. And I think a little more for me, I really have kind of felt that way a little more of you have to get out of that. And I mean, I'm a single guy, so when you kind of say the girlfriend thing, of course, like I don't have time for a girlfriend because I have too much time for time, I got too much time thinking about my schedules and doing this stuff, so I can't talk to girls or anything. But no, it's a really, really, truly valid point, and for me, I'm a Cowboys fan. So like, I think it was 2 weeks ago on Monday night we play, and this guy Marshawn Nealon, he goes and has this punt block and we score. We got him in 2024, like I think it was a second round draft pick, and then following that on Thursday he ends up shooting himself. So it's like, man, you really don't know what these people are truly going through, and you put on this kind of facade and you put on this face, and then internally it's like, as humans we feel like we can't ask those questions, but sometimes it's the most basic thing, like, hey, how are you today, and that can really change somebody's mood, and maybe they'll open up to you. Maybe you come into the gym and what would you talk about, and then it's like you figure something out like that, and then it's like, wow, man, like, I'm so sorry. And just to let somebody know, like, hey, I'm here, and I'm a source for you, whether that's just talking it out, whether that's getting your mind off of it. And and when I look at you, like, that's your way of love, and that's what I see love kind of coming out and doing it that way. So for me, that's a mission, is to kind of get out of my own trapped bubble that I kind of have, and to do those hard things that sometimes society isn't open to, with the direction that stuff has been, I guess.
Where do you think this? Why do you internally? Why do you feel like life is chaotic? You sort of said you don't know where it comes from, but I'm gonna ask anyways.
Yeah, yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do you feel like you're in a chaotic phase of life right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of people, of course, I'm 23, so a lot of people think that when you leave college, and it's the stupidest shit. I go back. It ties in with the college is not that serious, right? So there's this whole notion of you go through high school and then you go to college and then you got this job and then that's it. Like, you made it, bro. Like, you have a job, and that's cool. Like, let's go back to the kids that are in high school and let's tell them all the same things. And a lot of the time, and I was lucky enough to, I went to a career fair, and you kind of talk to people, and I was able to kind of get a job a lot easier than some people. But even at that point, it's like, well, now, like, I don't know. I filed my taxes for the first time last year.
Yeah.
I filed my taxes for the first time last year. Setting up Wi-Fi, setting up utilities. These are just things that they're basic now, but they're not talked about in your life. And let's say I was a bland person, like, just erase everything from me except for my job. Okay, well, you're gonna work from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and then what else are you gonna do? And then it's like, okay, well, you don't look at that like, well, I could join a club and I could probably get into maybe painting or something like that, and I could, for someone who isn't, someone who plays the guitar or whatever, it's like, yeah, I could really try to invest myself in the guitar or whatever. But then you're hung up on this idea of your job where it's like, but my job is me. Like, that's everything. I do this and that's who I am, and maybe I'll find a girlfriend. And I think for me, I started to realize I kind of dumbed it down, but there's two ways that you can go about it. And I don't think either one is wrong. I think it's very dependent of the person. But I think there is two paths, and the first one would be you can get a job and you can stay in that. And I'm not even meaning it like you can get a job and that's your whole thing. I'm not really looking at it that way, but you can be comfortable with having a job, whether it be you're going to be at one place all your life, or maybe you're going to beat around the bush in corporate America and do that kind of shindig. That's one path, and you'll find a girlfriend and you'll get a wife. You'll find this house on the prairie and you'll get a bunch of kids running around, and it'll be awesome. And that's it. That's what you're going to do. And I think I'm of course really, really quickly summarizing that style of life. I think it's great. 100%. But then there's this part of me that's like, well, what if you took a chance somewhere and you said, well, fuck that 8 to 5. Like, I don't want to do that. And I don't necessarily know if I want to maybe have a wife soon or have kids. And I have these goals in my head. So why not try to just go do them, And I think coming to you and kind of who you are, it's like the same thing with maybe you could have stayed in Sacramento and maybe you could have worked at a job and you could have just stayed in that one part of your life. But because you went to Austin and because you started this podcast and because you started pushing that way, like you met me and you met that guy who had just lost his parents this last year, and you got to do all these things and you found experiences and you made connections that way. Well, sometimes when I look at it, I'm like, well, that kind of sounds like a better gig than me just hitting the gym every day and doing the same old for weeks on end. And I think everyone will have their spin on that. And of course, everyone kind of looks at it differently, which is 100% you should. But at the same time, it's like you're really kind of debating, those things and who you are now and where the places you want to go. And you have to know, like, dude, at 21, 22, 23, 30, 45, 50, no one knows, And I started to realize, like, my dad, for instance, my dad is the same kid that graduated college. He's the same guy that was 23. It's all inside. He's the same person. He's just got a little older, and maybe he's had other jobs or whatever, but the same person you are inside will always be that person. We always say it's like, yeah, I'm an adult, but I'm a kid at heart. It's like we all are, because no one really knows what we're supposed to do here. No one knows what the right thing is to do. So, we kind of are juggling these things. And for me, that's the biggest part is I don't really know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know if I'm doing it right, and I have anxiety about it all. Like I said, I want it to be right and I want to find success. And when I feel like I'm not hitting those marks, I feel like I'm not doing it right, kind of to tailor onto that. I had a conversation with my dad, and this was on my way home one day, and I had just bought, kind of a nice watch, and it costed kind of a good amount of money. And I was a little, I wasn't skeptical of the purchase or anything, but I called him and it was really just a conversation around, I don't know, like, how much money do I need to make to be successful? How much money do I have to have yearly to get a big job or get a big house, to have a nice car, to send my kids to college? Like, how do I do that? Like, where I'm at right now, it's like I'm not doing enough to get that view of my head. Like, what is it? And he was just like, son, like, man, when I graduated college, he was like, I didn't have shit lined up. He's like, I didn't have a job like you. I didn't get to do that. He was like, I was working at the shoe store, and I was being a waiter, and I was like trying to find something I could do. My first job, it was, kind of started out as a part-time or whatever the situation. And he was like, when your mom and I got divorced, he was like, I had to pull kind of a lot of my savings and buy a lot of things, buy a house, and then I had to start from zero. So he's like, when I look at you, he's like, you're tenfold ahead of me. He's like, you're doing it. He's like, you're doing it right now. He's like, I don't understand why in your mind you think that you're not. You are saying that you're nothing and you feel like there's this whole way to go. And he's like, dude, you're doing it. Like, I genuinely don't have anything to tell you because you're way ahead of me. And then I'm looking at myself like, I don't see myself that way. And it's like, why don't I see myself that way? You know, there's always the next thing that I'm chasing after, you know? So I think all of those things combined just kind of put me in this space of like, am I doing it right? What am I doing? What could I do better, you know? And it's a lot of questions and not enough time to kind of figure out the answers. So I guess that would be kind of my biggest reason.
How do you like the tea?
Dude, I like the tea a lot. The tea is nice. It's nice on my throat. You know, it's super relaxing. You know, I don't drink too much tea, but I like the peppermint. It kind of, the fall weather, it's kind of getting me into the mood, you know. I'm liking it. Not too hot either.
Are you happy?
I am, you know, I'd say I'm happy because I am, you know, I'm a happy guy, and I have a lot of great friends and a lot of people that care for me, and a lot of the people I can reach out to. I'm in a good spot, but there's things I'm not happy about that I think could bring me peace in this life a little more. You know, so it's a hard one. It's a weird, hard one. I think my relationship with God is always evolving and it's always changing. And there's some things that I do that I think hurts that relationship a little bit. And that doesn't bring me peace, you know? And I think when I'm not fully at peace with myself, then I'm not really happy. And I probably find myself in that state of mind a little bit more frequently than I'd like to admit. And I just want to be a good person. I just want to be the best person I can be, you know, but I'm not. And there's times I don't do that. And I think that feels like a lesson I should have learned, and I still haven't learned it yet. And it's like, why have I not learned it yet? You know? And it almost feels like until I can find that answer, like I can't truly be happy and truly be at peace with myself in that state of mind.
What would you say if you just rattled them off? What are your some of your top moral values?
Top moral values. So, in a sense of like what I think someone should do, or what is true.
What you should do.
What you should do. I would say, I'd say awareness. And I don't know if awareness is a value, but I think it's something I've learned truly, and something I keep trying to evolve is awareness in every situation that you're in. For instance, this conversation that we're having, it's like there's some things that I should do, there's some things that I shouldn't do. When you're at this is a perfect example. Yesterday we were in this Uber, and this is it's a story I don't love, but it's an awareness thing, and I hate it, but it's right on my dome, so I got to tell it. We're in this Uber, and we're leaving this bar. None of us are drunk or anything like that. Like, I had a beer, and we get in. Let me set the scene. So my friend, I was kind of messing with one of my friends. My friend Lucas came in town, and I tell him, like, I'm gonna get you, and he's running away from me, and we're kind of just giggling like kids or whatever. And the Uber pulls up, and we get in the back. Two of my friends get in the back. I'm in the seat. And my friend is going to sit beside me. So I'm like, I'm going to mess with you when you get in the car or whatever. And I'm like making faces at him. And so he's dying laughing. He just keeps giggling, laughing. At that time, we really haven't talked to the Uber much. We just got in the car. And at that time, we're kind of giggling. And my friend Carl is like, hey, can you turn the air up? And the guy blasts the air. Well, at that time, so then he starts giggling. Lucas is just going to be giggling this whole time. So right then, he puts it on full blast. So, of course, Carl's like, hey, man, like, could you turn it down just a little bit? And now Carl's kind of laughing, and Lucas is laughing. In the Uber's mind, we're laughing at him because we told him to turn the air up, and now we're telling him to turn it down. So I understand the Uber, because I feel like I'm aware of kind of what's going on in this car. First off, we haven't talked to the Uber, so there's no relationship there. This kid's got, giggling, and this guy's telling you one thing, then he's telling you another. instantly the Uber's like, you know what? And he yanks us across the road, pulls off. He's like, y'all get out of my car. Like, y'all think I'm a clown show. Like, I'm not doing this. Like, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's like, what? Like, what do we do? The whole time I'm sitting there like, it's obvious. Like, you told him to turn it up. You told him to turn it down. And fucking this guy's just giggling the whole time. They think he's laughing at you, whatever. So I'm just like, whatever, whatever, whatever. But it happens all the time. And in every situation, it's like, you kind of have to start to feel what everyone's kind of experiencing and kind of put yourself in their shoes. And then I feel like the way that you're going to act after that is a lot more bright, and it's a lot more light and happy and good for everyone because you're thinking of everyone in that situation. A lot of the times I was always honed in on myself. So I was not really focused on all of them. I'm thinking about myself in that car. Oh, I'm hot, or I just want to mess with Lucas. And then I'm missing these little things, you know? And I think that that can be kind of detrimental in certain situations because you haven't thought and you're going off your own internal kind of motives or your own internal kind of pride or feelings that way. So I'd say that's like, awareness is something I'll always harp on. I would say, of course, the idea of love, family, God, you know, stuff like that would be, you know, a true, and I think that's I honestly do think that's kind of a generic value.
I don't think it's a value at all, to be honest.
I don't think it's a value at all.
No.
But like, what is a value? You know what I mean?
One of my biggest ones is keep your word even when it hurts.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Like little things. Okay.
Yeah. That one has a clever saying to it. I didn't come up with that. Someone else did.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one. Even like 3 weeks ago, I made a commitment to someone to go to a jazz club downtown, and we planned it out like 2 weeks ahead of time. And when the day of came, I was not in the mood to go. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I was with a friend, listening to music, order a pizza. Like, it's a fun time.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I wasn't in the mood. I went anyways because I value that so much.
Yeah.
I had someone just about 2 weeks ago that I actually uninvited to the podcast because he broke his word to me on 3 separate occasions, and I said this is a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna be flaky, you don't have any. This isn't the platform for
Yeah.
you. And that was tough, but I believe it was the right thing to do. So knowing that that's one of mine. Did anything come to mind for you?
Yeah, I'd say there was 3 that popped in my head. So the first one, kind of along the same lines, be a man of your word. That's going to be a number one with a true, I want to say a true person. That's what a man takes. If I tell you something, like, I'm going to do that thing. And if I don't, who really are you? You know, are you truthful at your tier? You know, another one my family always harps on: know who you are and whose you are. Always. Who you are and whose you are, wherever you're at, wherever you go. Of course, that's a small town thing, but know who you are and who you are. My high school teacher would always tell me this all the time, and she probably is the one that drilled this in my head the most. It's better to be an hour early than a minute late, always. You know, and that's probably why I'm such a kind of a time freak, but I believe it. You know, it's like, and I feel bad. I got here like right at 12. The apartment complex is crazy. When you came in, I couldn't turn right. I was like, I gotta go left. I don't know. I found it though. I did find it, and I got here at 12, so I was on time. But
Yes, you were.
But no, I'd say those, and you know, of course, I hear so many things and have had so many good influences in my life that I probably missed a few. But to be true to yourself. I don't know if this is a value, but I really want to talk about it. There was something I had heard from Matthew McConaughey. I love Matthew McConaughey.
Me too.
I read Green Lights. If you read that,
Yep.
I love that book. But he was talking about his son Levi was auditioning for a new role for one of his movies, and I don't think he had done any movies with him, or he wasn't, you know, a big actor or anything like that. But he was like, you know what, like, you know, we'll sit on it and think about it. And I think he thought about it for 2 weeks or whatever it was, and then came back to it, and he was like, you know, I still want to do it. So he's like, okay, we'll do like a little reading. And he sat in front of him, and of course, you know, Matthew read the lines and whatever. And he said, he was like, what I wanted to see out of him was when he's up there on that stage and he's, you know, reading these lines, like, is his soul telling the truth? Like, does he believe it? And I think that's monumental, you know. It's like, and of course I'm a big guitar player, and I kind of use it in that sense. That's kind of the way I can look at it. And you think about guys kind of like you had mentioned, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Stevie Ray is one of my favorites, and every time he was up there, it was like you'd see it in his face. It was like the emotion, how he's bending the notes, you know, how into it he is. Like his soul believes it. It believes everything he's doing. And you know, if you listen to some people who maybe aren't there yet in their careers, or you watch a bad Hallmark movie or something like that, no hate on Hallmark, but you know, sometimes it's like this isn't that good or whatever, and it's like, do they believe it? It's like, are they telling the truth right then in that moment with whoever they want to be, and are they conveying that? And if they're not, like, then why is that, you know? And I think it can kind of go the same way in like work or in this conversation, for instance, you know, with how open you can kind of be of widespread of that. But I loved it, and I've thought about it for a long time since of, is your soul truthful? Are you true in that moment? Not Jake, not his words, but who you are at its core. I don't know if that's a value, but I'd like to start making it a value. I like it a lot.
I just got his book, Poems and Prayers. And I'm not that far into it yet, but I read the foreword and the first chapter. And poetry is not really my thing, but I loved Greenlight so much. I was like, I gotta read it.
yeah. I haven't read that one. My mom had got me his journal that he does, and I've kind of messed with it a little bit. I had this idea that Matthew McConaughey would give me prompts and maybe I could start writing poems, and I realized that that's not how it gets done. But yeah, I'm a fan of some poems. I love like just kind of seeing it, you know, like just a quick little thing. Have you ever read any of like Charles Bukowski's stuff? He's a really good, I don't know a lot about him or his stuff. He was kind of rugged around the edges, you could say, as a writer. But I loved it. I think he writes very similar style to Matthew. I'm calling him Matthew like I know him. So fuck off. But just to help guide who I'm talking about. But he had a really good one, and it was called Bluebird. And I would always tell people to read this. And I actually did like an English literature. I had like a basic class in college, and I did a little study on that. And I like presented to the class of like, this is what I think he's talking about, like whatever. And of course, all the class was like shitting on the idea, and they were like, no, like I don't think that's blah blah blah. And I was like, fuck y'all, like yes it is, like whatever. And you know, to summarize it, it's basically, you know, the bluebird. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, and he's like, but I'm too cool for him. You know, I tell him to quiet down and whatever, and it kind of goes, there's a bluebird in my heart, you know, bluebird in my heart. But I tell him no, you know, and then he's like, at night, I let him out, and he sings his song, you know, and then I tuck him away back in there, and he's like, but I don't cry, do you? You know, and it's just really kind of a very, to me, it's an emotional kind of read, but at the same time, there's this thing inside us, and it wants to get out, but we're too cool for that. We put on this facade, and I think poems like that and stuff, when I can get a really good one, it really, really sticks with me, and I make that a pillar of kind of who I am, I guess.
Could you paint us a picture of the version of you that was in college?
Yeah. What part of college?
Early times.
Early college, yeah. We'll say, I'll call it my second year of college. I would say, you know, I was coming off of I'd started at this fraternity, so by that point, I'm now into the fraternity, and I'm a member and stuff, and it's my second year, so I'm that guy, you know, and, you know, I'm feeling hot, I'm feeling nicey, you know, I came from this small school, but now I'm making way. I had an easy freshman year. I'm that guy in college, you know, fall season starts, whatever. And I would say it was a lot about parties for me, and I loved going to tailgates, and we had these cool shindigs, and all these people would pull up, and I loved it, you know, and I had this long hair, so all these people knew my name. I thought I was that guy, you know. I was hitting the gym and looking pretty good, and I was focused on myself, and I was focused on vices and things that were probably not as productive to my life. I got really into some things I probably shouldn't have at that time, just because that's kind of, that's what everyone was doing, and that was kind of the cool thing, and um, yeah, very very douchey guy, in a sense. Still like a good guy and honest at heart, but not very open to much. A little more prideful, and I'd say pretty arrogant at that time, to everybody else. Like I would say, Troy, this guy we've talked about, and I love. Me and Troy probably weren't that close at that point in college, just because kind of who I was and who he was at that time. We didn't really see eye to eye on things, because I didn't let myself see that way. Um, if that answers your question, I could probably go down a rabbit hole of that, but I would say that was a little more, youthful, very eager, and, just wanted to attack it all.
So, Troy told me about a time where you made a mistake. And he wouldn't tell me anything more than that because
Yeah.
he's your friend and I'm a stranger and he was probably trying to protect
Yeah.
you. However, he said that in his mind it was one of the pivotal pages of your story.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Okay. Well, this is a deeper one. This is something I've carried with me probably the longest time I've carried most things. It became kind of I don't want to say my personality, but it became a huge hit, however you want to call that. And it sounds bad, and I'll tell the story, because I don't really care. But I think so. We had this, and it's not a great story. Let me preface: it's not a great story. So my my sophomore year of college, I had a girlfriend, and she was amazing person. She was great. She was always put other people first. She was came from a kind of a religious background, which I really loved and appreciated. At that time, I wasn't really there. You could say I wasn't on the same level of, I was coming from a divorced family. So for me, to my sophomore and junior year, that was hard for me. Had a lot of friends that had, parents that were together. And I started to realize, through a few lonely nights, that was a hindrance for me. And I thought about it more than I like to admit. I didn't talk about it, for the longest time. And then when I kind of got to that, area of my life, I started to realize that it was kind of becoming a problem. And I would see that in art arguments we'd have. And I never really feel like that she could understand where I was coming from. And that was kind of me with a narrow lens of it. But I just said, I was like, you come from all this love and these vacations. And I was like, I don't come from that. Like, that's not me. I wanted to be rugged. I wanted to be depressed a little. Like, I wanted to be kind of that guy I love Mac Miller. So I would always kind of listen to Mac, and his songs really kind of would drive that, and, all this cool stuff. But so kind of going into the spring of my sophomore year, we were kind of on thin ice. There was just a lot of arguments that were kind of going on, a lot of dumb stuff. It was college kids being college kids and thinking big about everything. So, we had kind of this incident where it was like, we're gonna break up, we don't, a few tears there, and then we move into this event. It was this thing in college that we'd all kind of go to, and a big concert, and it was a festival basically. And the first day of that festival, and this is my first time, so this is the first time I get to go. I'm a sophomore, and I'm in the fraternity. Like, this is awesome. I was a t-shirt chair at that time. Everyone's wearing my t-shirts for one day. Everyone's wearing my jerseys for the next. Like, I'm that guy out here, And I remember the first day I wore this outfit I shouldn't have. I didn't, like I said, I didn't ever think stuff like this was a problem, but it was like a jungle theme or Sahara desert theme or something like that. And I wore this, this leaf skirt and no shirt, and because I was kind of like Tarzan, and
Mhm.
and of course, looking back, when you have a girlfriend, like, don't wear that. Like, you don't wear that. Like, you're not impressing anybody. But of course, to me, it was like, I still want to impress everybody. It was like, I love you. I want you to know that. But I still want to impress everybody because whatever. And that was kind of one of those faults that I had become aware of. But anyway, so day one goes by, you kind of black out and you don't really know what happened. And the next day she was mad at me I didn't even know why she was mad at me. It was, she tells me, she's like, you go with your friends and I'm going to go with my friends for the day. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with you, whatever. And I think for me in that moment, it was a hit at my pride. It was, you don't know what you're going to do with me. Like, I'm the problem. Like, I'm not the problem. I was narrowed. I was very narrowed. I'm not the problem here. Whatever. Come to find, I guess the night before, I had walked to the festival with a group of boys and girls. One of the girls were my ex-girlfriends, which is a bad look, but walked to the festival and I left there. I'm only thinking of myself. I'm kind of blacked out and whatever. And my friend Nick kind of tells her, she's kind of crying. He's like, oh, I think he went with them. But then that kind of adds fuel to the fire. It's not a good look it's a bad look on me. I should have been with her at that time and, whatever. So going into the next day, she says all of that, which looking back is fair. And to me, it's like, really, really, okay, whatever. Like, I'll show you who I am. And, I'm kind of trying to, I started to learn this about myself when I'm in a feeling of a lot of, kind of crunching and I'm feeling a little angry, but I try to be okay on the outside. It's not a good look. It's like two opposing forces, right? I'm showing one thing and on the inside, I'm just like doing whatever. So later in that day, her friend came up to me and kind of said, she was like, yeah, I know, like you and her kind of arguing and stuff and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, like, I don't even know what the fuck I did, whatever. And she was like, yeah, like, she kind of told me that, like, she's thinking about breaking up with you, whatever. And right then and there, it was like, boom. It was like, that was the last pride I had left for kind of everything I was holding in. And for her to say that, I was like, no one's going to break up with me. Like, that's not going to happen. I don't take that shit lightly, like, whatever. So I started drinking, and I'm a big guy. I'm a lightweight, and I realized that in college. I still realize that today. I act like I can handle all these beers because I'm a bigger guy. I cannot. I'm not. I'm a lightweight. So we're kind of drinking throughout the day and whatever. Eventually, this girl comes up to me, who I knew kind of. She was like a year younger than us, and she's like, you want a shotgun? The shotgun and a beer. I'm like, yeah, I'll shotgun. And there was like her sister and one of my other friends were there, and we shotgun. And then she's like, you want a shotgun again or whatever? And I'm like, hell yeah, whatever. We shotgun again. Well, then it gets to the point where it's like just me and this one girl shotgunning. And I'd say after we probably shotgun like 5 or 6 beers. And after that point, it was like, lights on, no one's home. Like, nothing is going on inside my head. And we did just get a little too close in that situation. I had friends that told me after, they're like, you were talking to her for a long time. Like, I kind of came up to you and was like, hey man, like, you probably need to walk away. And you were just like, fuck off, whatever. And we ended up doing that. And we end up all walking to this festival to see the concerts together, and we're obviously, touching on each other, whatever. Well, at that time, you have to understand that I am purely thinking of myself, and every single person I go to college with is at this festival. So you have me and kind of this group of people, and then you have my girlfriend and all of her friends 15 feet to our right. Like, so, that kind of gets out, and then I remember I kind of black in, and I black in, and I'm in my friend's house at Boardwalk, and I just kind of was like, like, whatever, and everyone's kind of like, I feel this feeling, and I'm like, something's not right, like, this is not good, and everyone's kind of mad at me or whatever, and I'm just like, I gotta leave this space. Boardwalk had a lot of houses with our fraternity guys on it, so I left that house and I go to some of my best friend's house, and we go and I sit down and I'm kind of realizing like I'm not really like, no one really wants me here, and I don't really understand kind of what the situation is. And I remember I had my friend Shane, like he walks out and goes inside, and I was like, I don't really want to be out here. Shane's my best friend. I was like, I'm gonna go inside. It's him and like this other person, whatever. And he goes off on me. He's just like, I cannot believe you, like blah blah blah. And at the same time, at that moment, I'm not really realizing what he's talking about to its extent. I know that I probably did something I shouldn't have, and I kind of know the reasoning there. I didn't know what it looked like, but he starts going off on me. I mean, Shane, if you know him, it's like if he's going off on you, it's like, dude, something, you've crossed some kind of line. And that night, and I just decide, I'm like, fuck all y'all. I just leave, go to my room, go to bed, wake up, and you kind of sit there and you're like, holy shit, like I felt terrible. I was like, something is terribly wrong. And of course, like her sister had DM'd me on Instagram, and she's telling me how much of a piece of shit I am and whatever. And I eventually had got one of my other friends, Andrew, and Andrew kind of calls me. He's like, hey man, like, do you want to go get some breakfast? Like, whatever. I'm like, Andrew, like, something happened, bro. Like, it's bad. And of course he knows. And so I'm leaving, and then my roommate Lucas is like, where are you going? Because I haven't talked to him. And I'm like, I'm going to get breakfast with Andrew. And he's like, I'm coming, whatever. So instantly, we get in this car and we're on our way to eat. And he's just like, he starts asking me all these questions, like this, that, and the other. And I'm like, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, I can't fucking think right now. Like, it's bad or whatever. So we kind of walk through this, that, and the other. And of course, knowing how college kids are at that age, now we have a group chat together, like all of us, the whole fraternity and sorority of our, kind of year. And all these girls are kind of, one girl saying this, and she's like, relationship declined. And I have a few friends trying to back me up, and I'm like, dude, this is bad, bro. Like, this is just not a good look. And I could sit here and harp on kind of how that went. To fast forward just for a second, me and her eventually, kind of meet up on that Monday, and talk, a little bit briefly about it and stuff like that. And it was sad. I mean, it was super sad. We kind of shed a lot of tears. I definitely cried, and she cried, and I left that kind of feeling like, it's hard when two people don't want to break up. It's not like a mutual thing. It's something happened. It's like, we have to. And I remember when I went home that night, and I got back, and my friend Shane, he had known. I was like, I'm going to go do this or whatever. And we're kind of on a better page at that point. And I remember he comes up to my room. I'd like just walked in my room, just got home. He comes up there, and it was like I just looked at his face, and he's just looking at me, and I just start bawling, crying. And I'm just at a loss, It's like, what was that? Like, what took over me in that moment, And he's hugging me, and I'm just crying. And I'd say moving forward, it was tough, because you have to think from not only their sorority, but one of our other sororities and this friend group who I was really good friends with. It was like everybody kind of for a little bit was like, we cannot be friends with this guy. Like, it's a bad look for us. We just don't want to associate with that. So, that was really hard. I remember my mom had called me, and this was kind of in that phase. And of course, my girlfriend, I'd told her we broke up, and probably told her why. And my mom calls me, and she starts crying, and she's like, I don't want you to turn out like your dad. It's like you're doing all this, like you're going to end up like him, all this. And I mean, when you're hearing that from your mom, it's like, it's so hard, It's like the two people I know are always in my corner, and now you're kind of not. So to get hit by that, and then to go through that, I mean, I didn't even want to go to the bars. It was like, I don't want anyone to see me. Like, I don't want to want to be at a party and walk up to people because they're looking at me a certain way. Like it was like everyone's face for the next month when I saw them, it was like I'm reading it and I can tell. It's like you're thinking about it and you want to say something and you don't know how to act right now. But it's like I you don't even have to say it because I've seen all these faces. I know what it is. And you know, it was just hard for me. It was hard for me going forward from that point for, you know, the next year. And I mean, even going into junior year, going in, you know, moving forward, it was always so tough. And of course, by senior year, you'd have some, you know, some of the closer friends. It was a little more like it's not that big a deal, but for me, it was such a big deal. It was like one of the hardest things. You know, I was in an elevator one time leaving a library, and one of the girls in the elevator was in the sorority and then texted the friends. They were like, "Yeah, Jake Caffey's at Evans right now," and it's just like all these eyes on me, you know, and I'm only like 20 years old. So, and I'm coming from a small town. I never had this pressure. So, I really think that kind of brought me down off this huge pedestal I had been on from high school to early college. And it just showed me like you're not really that guy and nobody likes you. And that's kind of how I felt. And I think there was a lot of negative emotions that came with that in the way that I looked at myself. But Sunday, and this is why I love Troy, on Sunday, the next day, and I'm kind of all over the place, but that happens on Saturday. And on Sunday morning, I get back from eating or whatever, and Troy walks in and he's like, you know, I was at church today. Me and Lucas, you know, we went to church today, and he was like, the pastor was actually saying, he was like, sometimes when your friends are walking through hell, you know, a lot of people, you know, they think it's like, you know, you need to let them do that, and you know, we're the church and we have to be kind of that way, and we'll shun them out and push them out, and they'll figure it out on their own and maybe they'll come back. He was like, when your friends are walking through hell, he was like, your job is to hold their hand and walk with them, and you will guide them to the light. And it was just something that, you know, Troy's kind of our dad of the house. So for me to see that, I was scared. I was like, I don't want him to know. I don't want him to think of me that way. I'm scared of what he's going to say. You know, I've said all these things, and then for him to just see me and hug me and say like, I'm here, I'm walking with you. Like I'm going to take care of you, you know, and that just, it said so much about Troy and kind of our relationship and the places it went after that. But it was hard. And I think with a lot of my close friends' help, you know, with conversations with Troy and stuff like that, it was a lot of thinking, I think, a lot of the time. And awareness at that point became all of my life. And it was, I didn't want to do anything because I didn't know how someone was going to feel, or I was very, very skeptical on that or this or whatever. And I just started to evolve from it. I learned, and I opened the Bible more and just started praying, and I'd write these prayers down every day. I'd pray for my ex-girlfriend and just wanted to make sure that I could just do everything I could at that moment, you know. And with that came a lot of light. I think my faith was hard and it was super rocky at that time. I was kind of going everywhere. I was with people that were super religious, and I kind of didn't agree with, you know, their stances on things. And of course, following that, I feel like I kind of get pushed out of that circle or whatever. And, you know, I look at all these religions at that time, and I just wanted to figure something out. I was like, I got to find some kind of answer. And, you know, I don't know if Christianity, I don't know if Buddhism or Hinduism, like there's so many of these religions, and I'm political science, I'm minor in psychology, so I know all, you know, culturative relativism, you know, and law and religion and all these just different things are telling me like, well, it could be this or it could be that. But if you look at all these books and the messages that all of these religions are trying to say, it's like love. Like that's the number one thing that's getting harped on, is just love. Love as much as you can. And I think from that point on, it was like I got one job to do, and I'm just going to try to love as much as I can. You know, if it's in a conversation with some girls I don't think like me, like just try to be nice. Like get the door, try to, if someone needs beer, bring them some beer, like just be that guy, serve other people like as much as you can. And I would say through that, in going into senior year, I had really evolved into kind of a different person. And I mean, even today, it's and it's hard with that specific relationship. We kind of were on and off for a little bit following that. Of course, she was like one of my really a true girlfriend, like the one true girlfriend that I had, and that was hard. But to then look back on it and say, I've been able to become the person I am because of all of these things that have happened. And people would, I think, probably had asked me like, would you, if you could go back, there's always like that, do you have any regrets? Like, would you go back and change anything? And I told someone one time, I was like, I would never not do that again. And they were like, of course. It's like, why? It's like, that's, and it is, I don't want to say it's selfish in a way. I'm only talking about myself when I say this, but it's like, if I hadn't gone through that feeling, I don't know if I would be here the same person I am today, with the lessons I've learned, with the things that I've done. I could have went completely off the deep end if it weren't for that slap in the face realization of like, you need to get it together and you need to like collect yourself. You have a few people in your corner who truly believe in you, and you know what you want to do in life, and you know what that's going to take, and you're just going to have to go and get it. And it was monumental for me, and I learned so many things and thought so many things, and I cried, and I loved it because I felt it, and I sat in that feeling for so long that I was eventually ready to just, I think I've grown out of that. I conquered that feeling, and I conquered that hate towards myself, and now I can move past that. And I have at least a few lessons that I've learned from it.
You're a very good storyteller.
Unfortunately, yeah. Every story, every conversation is really me just telling you a story.
What was that? I imagine you don't tell that story very often. What was that like, reliving through that for a few minutes?
I'd say it was tough. I mean, I'm very much I keep to myself a lot. I think that's kind of the thing about guys, is we don't really like to talk too much about the things that we go through. And it's a little bit, because you get scared, right? Like, I'm sitting here even thinking about like some viewer in California, and he's like, this guy's a piece of fucking shit. And I'm sitting there like, oh, well, here we go, and it's refreshing though. I almost feel like I was kind of feeling timid the whole time expressing that. And then to stop, it's almost like a sigh of relief, to be able to tell that story. And I mean, just to be able to admit defeat sometimes is a real pleasure in life, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, what if the listener is a 16-year-old kid in a 2,000-person town who feels like he's not seen it all?
Yeah.
And then he sees you, and
Yeah.
that you made it through it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd say we all make it through it, and it's always a journey. And I mean, if you could look at it like, there's places everyone's going to go, and we're all going to get to the finish line either way. And I think that's one of the true things that you got to realize about life is really what it is these highs and lows and challenges and love and feeling and emotion and all of these beautiful things, and just experiencing those things in any way you can. And jobs, we have to do a job, but we experience things there, and it's never the end of the world. It's never anything that deep, and we'll always mature out of it, and people will forget things, and they'll love you for them either way. So I think I definitely would say, coming through that experience, I learned that hardship can mean positivity, it can mean growth. And I was able to genuinely see growth in myself, through that time when you're in the shitter, you don't think you see that a lot, and to my point, I don't know if the the thing is on me, but I have these tattoos, and this one right here specifically is this face. When I got it, I never thought anyone would ask me who that girl is. It's not really anybody. But you see there's kind of like a face, and she has this look of elegance and kind of looking away, and there's this line on her face. And what that really represented to me, it's one of my favorite tattoos, because I think about that. That tattoo is for that part of my life, and it's a representation of kind of, there's a lot of good things that we go through in life. There's a lot of bad things that we go through in life. And we're in the bad things. A lot of the time there's an amount of pressure on us, and it's so hard. And a lot of the times, I could tell you, first and foremost, it was, I'm underwater, I'm not treading, I'm not swimming, I'm under. Like, I can't reach the surface, I can't fucking see the surface. I'm straight up down at the bottom. And in that moment, I don't think there's a way out. It's like, I'm not gonna make it. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's over for me. And then with time and conversations with your friends and walks outside and this love that you can feel, you know, you look back on it and you're like, I wouldn't take that moment away. It was really hard, but it made me beautiful. It made me open my brain, and it expanded my horizon on what can be. So, you know, I think it's an important lesson for me to know that, and to think that when the going gets tough, in a way the tough get going, and keep going, and then it's gonna be a pretty thing. I promise you. You just got to grit down, remember who you are and whose you are, and keep going forward. And that's why, you know, I wanted to have that on me, to always know, because I know that, yes, I've climbed that wall, but there's going to be another wall and another wall and another wall, and I'm going to have to know in my heart that I can do those things. And it's always important to me.
Where do you think you sit with God now, or religion, or a higher power, whatever word you want to use?
So that's tricky. I want to start with this. So I'd had a conversation with a friend, one of my good friends, and we ponder religion all the time. And it's hard for me because I look at religion a lot differently than some people, a lot differently than Troy, a lot differently than my neighbor, a lot differently than someone who's at church all the time. And I contemplate this idea in my head, and, you know, of who is God. You know, I'd been kind of a part of this, you know, this thing in college, and they really kind of, to me, and this is just me, kind of made God kind of look a little more harsh, you know, whatever. And then I'm reading these books, and it's like, he's love. And I ponder this idea, you know, if you have this guy, so let's just look, you have two guys. The first guy, he goes to church every Sunday, you know, and he does that, and he brings his Bible, and he stands up and he sings these songs, and then he goes, you know, home and watches, you know, football or whatever, and you know, cuts people off in traffic on the way to work, and drinks too many beers Friday night, and, you know, probably isn't the best guy Saturday, but then, you know, he's back at church the next morning and puts his head down for prayer and, you know, reads what he's told to. And I put that guy against a kid that doesn't know what he's doing at all. But when he makes faults, he thinks about them, and he knows that he needs to be better. And he knows that there's certain things that he's got to do to kind of become the person he wants to become, in terms of that could be success. But, you know, he's driving, and maybe he's like, well, I want to slow down, and I'm going to let this lady get in front of me. And, you know, somebody needed something at work. Hey, I'll go do it. I'll go get it for you. No worries. And he does that. And on Sundays, he, you know, kind of feels a little shame. He hasn't really read the gospel, but I promise he's talking to God, you know, in his day-to-day. He's having conversations daily, you know. And if you believe in the Holy Spirit being within you, then you can have that conversation, you know, typically. And you have this guy that just wants it so bad. He wants to be a well-rounded, you know, follower of Christ, and he wants to do everything right, and he's trying to figure out, and he's hard on himself because of that. But he's not in the church on Sundays. and he maybe kind of has those Bible studies before work on his own, and he kind of maybe he knows that some people don't believe all things he does, so instead of talking about God, he talks about peace, or maybe he talks about happiness, kind of a relative synonym there. Like who would get into heaven? you know which guy's better? I mean, I think a lot of the times we look at Christians from a point of, you go to church on Sunday, maybe a Wednesday, and you're super happy on that Sunday, but the moment you leave or the moment the next day starts, like, you forget all about it. Well, let's say you don't really go into the church, but I mean, you ponder it all the time, and you're constantly talking to God. I mean, all day long, just because you're so aware of your wrongdoings and you just want to be right. Who is going to get into heaven at that point? Will either get into heaven? Is one guy better than the other? Is talking to God, reading a Bible? Is it closing your eyes in prayer? Is it screaming in the car? Like, it's very relative. And I think for me, what I learned, I had a conversation with my dad when I was kind of going through a rough kind of situation with that organization I was in college. And I just tell him, I'm like, man, I don't know. They're saying that you don't read your Bible and you don't do all of these things, so you're probably not going to get into heaven. But then they say it's faith, not works. So why would you need to read your Bible? And I'm not understanding it. And he told me, he's like, son, I'm 40 years old at that, at that point. I'm 40 years old. Like, I'll tell you straight up, when I get on my tractor and I go plow the farm and I'm by myself and I have my music playing and the breeze is blowing just right and the sun's at a perfect point in the sky and it's just me, he's like, man, I'm in it. I'm with God. In that moment, I'm with God. I'm with all of his creation. I'm at peace. Like, I'm talking to God out there, just me. And when I learned that the church, that it is important to have community. It's important to have humility in the church. It's important to go to church. But church isn't everything. And just reading a few verses on a Bible, it's not everything. It's the conversation within yourself. It's kind of, that. I'm a big soul guy. I don't know if you'll be able to tell that, but it's that. The soul means much more to me than all of our worldly and physical things. And I think that can be truth in itself. And I think you can learn a little bit more with that thought pattern than you can this one. So to ask, like, what's your relationship with God? It's like, well, I don't read my Bible every single day like I want to. I would love to read my Bible every day and do that, because you have to learn about God and you have to learn about his travels. And it's kind of like a conversation with God when you're reading that. It can't be all about you and your failures and praying for your grandma and all of these things. It can't be that. I wish I prayed more. I don't have enough humility in prayer, because I feel like, because I don't go to church all the time and I drink maybe a little too much on the weekends, that I feel a little shame, in that. But at the same time, I know that I'm walking with God and I know he's there with me, and he's pushing me, and he's always has his grace on me. I'm a true believer in God's plan. Whatever God has for you in store, it will happen. And whatever highs they are, it's for a better cause, and you'll get there one day. And for me, I've seen that, and I know God's been there for me. I mean, through college and that kind of experience I had, I knew he was there, and he was the one that threw down a fucking, big sinker, and I pulled myself up by the rope, or maybe he pulled me up, you could say. So I know he's there, and I know that in certain times that I bring this light, but I wouldn't say I'm there, and I don't think I'm ever going to be. I think walking with God is a long, long, long walk, and I don't know if you ever really stop. There's a lot of growth that I want to have to be a better man, to be a better family man, to be a better brother, a better son, to not focus on my timeline so much, but to focus on others. Those are things that I can do, to make myself better. But to say that I'm not there with God is, I'll tell you, he's been with me for a long, long time, and we've been having this conversation for a long time. I'm tired of asking other people about, I guess, their view of what our conversation should be about. because it's my conversation with God. It's no one else's, So I think there's an openness. When you have that openness, it's important to kind of gain that relationship. Don't be closed off. I don't to me, I don't think there's a reason, like I said, there's a lot of cultures, so do what you want to do. To each their own, right? But at my point, it's like, well, I think someone's there for me, and I'm just gonna throw my hat in the ring and ride with it. I'm gonna go with the flow, and I'm just gonna ride this wave out. Like I'll bet on that. So that's kind of me now, and that's kind of the journey. And like I said, it's a lot of learning a lot of the time, and trying to evolve who you are and in your ideas. I mean, in a few months, maybe I'll think something differently about that, and that'll be okay. Drop this.
It's a very good answer. So many thoughts running through my head right now.
Yeah, that's the problem. I'm kind of a rambler, so you might just have to. Hey, let me say something.
No. You're. It's a good rambling. So, a question that Troy wanted me to ask you: if you die, when you die, we're all gonna die, and appear before God, and He asks, "What did you do with what I gave you?"
I hate how you asked that. Cause we'd always say back in the day, there's a story of I don't know you. I'm terrified of that. I'd be so scared to get in front of God, and He says, "What did you do?" And you name all these things, and He says, "I didn't know you," and He shuns you out and He throws you out the gates. That's a terrifying moment for me. But I would hope that, and it's hard because you don't want to sound like you're begging or anything like that, but you want to say, I trusted you, and I believed in your plan, and I tried to spread that and touch as many hearts as I could, and show them your light in every way that I could, to be as much as I am a sinner and of the world, that I tried to live as closely as I could with your plan and your path. And it's beautiful. I mean, when to try to walk in God's light is kind of a cool thing. This guy who, I simplify, this guy who just walks through these places and touches these souls and sees this blind man, outside of Jerusalem that, no one's showing attention to. He's like, stand up and walk, bro. You can see, like, whatever the case may be. He's just doing all these amazing things. But it's more than that to me, because I think that with him, it's like a lot of people would see that as like a miracle. It was a miracle, that he did this. But He showed him the time of day too. It wasn't just Him saying, stand up, you can walk, or open your eyes, you can see. It was He cared for these people, and He approached them when probably most people at that time wouldn't. So when we look at how can we follow God's plan, I think, of course, we want to sit there and say there are these big things that we have to do. I gotta save someone's life, or I gotta do that. But it's the little things too that truly made Jesus, when He was walking down that path. So I don't know exactly what He'll say, but I want Him to say that I lived a life close to Jesus, and I trusted God with everything I had, and I gave up worldly possessions because I knew that there was something beautiful and amazing waiting for me on the other side. Because if this is all there is, going to the fucking work and drinking on the weekends, like, I don't want it, So I don't know if I really answered the question, but I want to walk a life similar to Jesus, and I want to let people know of that light. And of course, I'm not going to tell everyone this story from college that I meet, but I want them to know, like, hey, there is growth and there's brightness, and you can do that too. You just got to, find your way, and you'll make it out of the mud. I'd always loved that. When I picked up psychology, I think it was my second semester of sophomore sophomore year, it was my first semester of junior. But I did that because I just wanted to learn about myself, and I wanted to be able to help other people in ways that maybe they didn't know that their thought process was actually like, hey, that's actually like a term, it's something that people do. Just to know that it gets better, and it can get better, and there's always light, and that's what God wants for us, and if we could all be on that same page, then shit, it'd be pretty cool, Like I said, there's bounds and leaps that I need to go. Troy and his faith is, I don't know, I probably told Troy this before, but that was the thing, is in college, and especially at that time, there was no one I had to turn to. This group of people had kind of pushed me out. I didn't really know who kind of my friends were, but I knew Troy, and I looked up to Troy. I'd probably boost his head that I'm saying that, but I did. It was like he had this faith and this love for other people, and he was disciplined, and he hit the gym, and he could still go to school, and he was big in our fraternity, and he was something that I latched on to, and I was like, I want to be like you. I want to follow God like you follow God, because you just touched my life, and if I could do this to somebody else, like I want it bad, because it brings me so much joy, to have a moment like that with somebody.
What will you do differently when you walk out of this door today to spread more love to people around you?
Yeah, honestly, I think I got to get out of my head. I got to get a little more into a service mindset. And I would say I typically kind of bounce back and forth. I kind of feel this way today, and I feel one way tomorrow. But to talk it out sounds stupid, doesn't it? It's like, it sounds fucking stupid now that I'm saying it. It's like, it's not that serious. Like, what's the most serious thing? When kind of going back to that one guy and his parents, it's like, you never know what tomorrow will bring. So what can we do right now in this moment to show people that light and to love them that way? And it's simple things. And I'm not even talking about, oh, we got to go preach the gospel, and oh, we have to go harp on somebody. Hey, I like that hat, dude. That's a cool hat. Yo, David, I like your beard today, man. You're looking real scruffy. That kind of thing, and I really do need to get out of my head, and sometimes it's just about getting back to the basics, of let's simplify it again and find that solution. I think in this conversation, I do kind of start to realize that, and I'd say there was a point in my life where I really felt confident, and I really felt like I was into service, and I was full of love. And then I kind of got back in my own head, and I started caring about my numbers, for my job, and I started caring about the wrong things. And like I said, there's a beauty in just nothing, and just to be there, be present in a moment. I think in the future, and I'm 10 steps ahead all the time, but when you slow down and just pause and look to your left and look to your right, it's like you can do something right then and there. So it's like, just do it, And I think that would be important for me, and just important for where, like I said, where I want to go, but for my friends, and again for my family. And I don't see my family enough. I say that it's 5 hours away, and it is a long drive, and I don't have a girlfriend to sit in the car and talk my ear off. But what, we're not promised tomorrow. So you need to see your family, and you need to care for those people you love, and you need to call them and touch base on them. And it takes kind of like it takes a conversation, or it takes whatever to kind of bring you back to that moment of, that makes me happy. Like when my mom hugs me, I love that, and she makes this food that's so good, and the dogs are barking, and I'm not at work, and work's not there, hopefully, and it's super nice. So I would say that. You really do start to realize things, because I'm talking to you, but I'm kind of looking at a mirror at the same time,
Yeah. Well, we're not quite done yet, but I just want to say, in case I forget, I have enjoyed every second of this conversation.
I know.
This has been so much fun.
I know. I was so worried about the camera and stuff, and I promise you I stopped thinking about it like 10 minutes in, like you said.
Yeah. Real quick to the audience, if you live in Austin, we are having our first episode in front of a live audience on Saturday, February 28th at 1 p.m. If you scroll down in the show notes, you can see a link to the website where you can go to sign up for the event. There's going to be some live music. There's going to be some live comedy. And this is a dream of mine that is becoming a reality, and I would love for you to be able to share that experience with me. The guest is awesome. He's going to remain anonymous. He is a he, I guess. I let that out. But this guy is just someone who, when we recorded, there is something in my gut that told me that this is the guy for the first live episode. He just has a really good heart, a really good soul, and I think that he and his message will light your internal fire. So whether it's burning bright and you want to add some fuel to it, or maybe you're in a stage of life where it's burning a little bit dimmer and you need some fuel added to your fire, please come out. Registration will only be $1. If you want to give more, if you want to give $500, there's an option to do that too. This podcast has been fully funded by myself to this point, and so at the end of the day, this event is not to make money. I'm hoping to just break even. And the second thing I would like to tell you guys today is that if you're listening on Spotify, follow the podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, follow the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. And if you guys do that small favor to me and you partner with me with this free act that takes none of your money and 10 seconds of your time, I'll keep finding guests like Jake to bring stories to you every Saturday. So please do that small favor for me. I asked Troy to write you a letter. I'm going to read it to you. Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jake, seeing the change of your heart over the past few years has been such a gift. Specifically, I've seen a development in your attitude of curiosity rather than judgment, your pursuit of truth, and acknowledgement of where we as humans fall short. You seek excellence in all you do, whether it's your friendships, spiritual life, fitness, or career, but seek it in a rightly ordered way rather than in pride. Due to your humility, you have grown to be a source of wisdom that I trust I can find an honest answer in, and I appreciate you as someone I can seek counsel from who is full of grace for me and others. I am honored to call you a brother of mine and thankful for your consistency and dedication to true friendship. I'm always here to support you and pray for you. I love you, bro. Troy.
I love that guy. He has such a way with words. Such a way with words he does.
As do you, Yoda.
I know. He's in town. We're going to Mass tomorrow, so that will be good to see him and follow up with this. And like I said, he was, just a monumental guy for me, in my life. And this isn't Troy's fucking podcast; it's mine. But he's a great.
Yeah, fuck off, Troy.
He's just a beautiful guy. And the thing about Troy that I loved and that I really felt like we kind of came together was Troy won't talk a lot about freshman year Troy. Troy won't talk about high school year Troy because he kind of was a little bit more like me, in that phase. So for me to see him change and then for me to kind of go through something similar and then desire a change like that, it honestly is a beautiful thing. And I think it did nothing but kind of brought us closer together with where we fall short, but where we really want to go and excel at. So I think that's amazing. I'll have to keep this. I was not expecting this today. A little sad, but
why sad?
Just a lot of emotion. I'm an emotional guy. I don't like to admit it most of the time. My mom would say it because I'm a Cancer, but I am an emotional guy. I lead with kind of feeling there, and it just touches my heart, to know that someone's there for you like that, and to know someone cares for you like that is like a weird thing. Because I think for me, like I said, I think that I am harder on myself, that I am lighter, and just to know that you have friends that like see you this way, and think you're a great person is refreshing, but also like a deep like oh, like thank you, like that's amazing.
Yeah.
And it just makes you want to be better and makes you want to strive to make people like him proud of you. I want to make Troy proud of me, and I hope that I want to make my parents proud of me and my other friends proud of me the way that I intend to, and have a little bit, to kind of keep that path going the right way.
Yeah, I remember good friend Tyler texted me about maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and he wrote out this beautiful paragraph of just similar to what Troy just wrote you.
Yeah.
And it had the same impact on me. Where
Yeah.
it's just like, oh,
Just like, oh,
maybe I am a decent human
Yeah,
being
I'm like,
after
oh,
all. That's part of the reason I wanted to start seeing this therapist, is because I told him sometimes people can, say things like this about me and I don't believe them.
yeah,
So even when they say it, it's nice
100%.
and it feels good, but I'm like, why are they talking like this
Yeah.
about you?
Yeah. Well, because when you see him, you're just like, what a dickhead or whatever,
Yeah.
something like that. And you talk about sports or whatever, but you don't tend to get as deep as you kind of want. I think it's almost important, it's you kind of want to have a deep conversation every once in a while and just be as open as you possibly can and just have it free.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed, I've been trying to give more people, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but I've been trying to give more people compliments, and I find that a really easy group is gym dudes.
Yeah.
Gym dudes really like getting complimented.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you're sitting next to someone on a bench in front of the dumbbells or whatever, and you look over and you take out your headphone and you make eye contact and just say something like, dude, your shoulders are massive.
Yeah.
And you just see them light up.
Yeah.
And it makes me think of that a line from Matthew's book, our good friend Matthew McConaughey. He said the most selfish thing I can do is to be selfless.
Yeah.
And it's true. I pay people compliments. Yes, I like to see them feel good, but I also like the feeling I get when I just see that I made someone's day. It's so selfish.
Yeah.
I don't really care about your shoulders.
I know.
I just want to feel happy. So I'm going to pay you a compliment so I can feel better.
Dude. It's so true though. This dude came up to me and said, he was like, well, I was asking you about this machine. You're a pretty big guy. So, and I was like, I'm a big guy? Like, I'm a big guy? Because I feel like such a little guy. So even when you said that the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, like, people think I'm fucking big in here? Whatever.
You are a big guy. I was looking at your legs earlier, and I was like, I've never noticed how massive they are before.
I think they're small, bro.
You're insane. Your body dysmorphia is maxing right now.
I have a bad body dysmorphia. That's super true. But yeah, it's the weirdest thing. I feel like such a little guy in my head, and then I still just don't even know like how big. Like I always feel like when you see a guy that's like 6'5", I'm like, I'm so fucking short, dude. And then it's like, you're 6'2", and I'm like, I'm so short. Like, I'll never be that guy.
A couple episodes ago, who was it? Maybe Alan? I forget who it was, but I asked someone what their biggest insecurity was, and he was like, my height. And he's my height. He's like 5'11".
Really?
Not quite 6
Yeah,
foot.
yeah.
And I'm like, you think about this? Like, it bothers you as you go throughout the day?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. I was like, I guess you could hang from a pull-up bar to start every workout or something. Maybe you try to...
Like, and you wonder... Like, I wonder where that comes from, because it's like, I definitely think, and I'm not really on dating apps. I've been on Hinge, like, I'll do, like, Hinge once a week. I've done it twice, last year, this year, for just a 1 week. And I think, like, that has to be something of, like, girls, they're like, oh, you're not 6 foot, like, whatever. And then it's kind of starts to, you internalize that and start wondering, like, well, do I need to be 6 foot, like, to be happy and have, like, happy marriage? And it's like, that's terrible. Like, we do not need to be going down that kind of road. But it's honestly interesting, to hear, especially that question of, like, what's your biggest insecurity, like, looking at myself, I have the stupidest insecurities. My hat, for instance, and my hair. It's the easiest one I can think of. When I put my hair in a bun, I promise to you and all of my friends and every single person that I see, it's like, dude, it looks the same no matter what. But if it doesn't flare like a certain way out of the back, or if it's too much of a certain kind of curl, I have to redo it. I'll redo it and redo it and redo it and redo it until like I can perfectly get the back going. And then they're like, it looks just like you did the first time. And it's like, really? But then I feel a little more confident. So it's just interesting, what people kind of harp on, and like the things that they're pointing out in themselves that other people are completely missing.
It's funny. One of my friends, Tyler, the one who texted me. He's a drummer in a band, and I was hanging out at his house once while I was mixing and mastering a song, and he worked on it for 4 hours.
Wow.
And at the end of it, he was like, "How does it sound now?" And I was like, "You're gonna hate this answer. It sounds the same. I couldn't tell you what you spent the last 4 hours doing.
Mm-hmm.
All I can tell you is I now hate this song because I just listened to it on repeat
Yeah.
for 4 hours. I will
Dude.
never go to his house when. And the thing about it is, it's such a good song. It's The Broken View. Check out Too Soon out on YouTube now. It's such a good song. But now, like, I never want to listen to it again
Yeah.
because I heard it way too
Yeah.
many times. I don't get how musicians do their thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's gotta. And then you have to go on the road and perform it for the next year.
Yeah, it's a tough one, bro. Like, I mean, there's so many times, you know, where, like, for me and kind of like the things that I like to do, I'll be sitting there and it's like, this was like a big one because when I first got kind of into my pedals and stuff, I got this looper pedal. So it finally gave me the chance when I was playing by myself to, I can do my own little thing in the background, it'll loop, and then I can play something on top. And, you know, when I was doing that, it was like, I'd be like, this sounds like really good. You know, like I was like, this is really good. And then I kind of would like, I'd share it with some people and they'd be like, oh, I like that. And I'd be like, you don't love that? Like, I love it, you know? And then when they say that, they're like, I like it. And then I immediately think, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, like the bridge could probably like add a note and maybe we could do it that way. And I'll do it again. And I'm like, you know, this sounds like shit. Like, this is not it. This is, and I guess for me, kind of what I found out with that especially was, you know, in terms of music and I'm very like, music for me is a very vulnerable kind of thing. I like to, that's kind of my escape zone. And, you know, like Stevie Ray, it's when I'm bending these notes, like I really am trying to feel something and I'm wanting to talk through it a little bit. You know, music can say stuff, you know, people can't sometimes is kind of the saying, you know. And I think for me, I realize it's like when it's good with you and you're happy with it. And that's, you know, and it hits all the boxes and it's something at that point and you're ready to share it. But know that when you're sharing that, it's for other people to interpret as their own and for them to have, because you already found that for yourself. And for a long time, I was sending these loops out and does this sound good? Does this sound good? I want them to tell me like, that's number 1 on the charts, bro. Like, release that. And they never will, you know, because you in that moment in that song, it's different than when they're in the car and they quickly, you know, view it or something. So it's really kind of coming to that place within yourself. And again, I think that might come with like peace or whatever, but just to be happy with what you've achieved and kind of what you came up with. It's really fun. And then that's that, like, call it quits right there. Like, you did it. Good job, you know, pat yourself on the back.
What what gives you hope?
What gives me hope? I would say, is the future abroad of hope? No. You know, I do think that, of course, we could just say faith gives you hope, and I'm just going to toss that one in there to put it. Hope in the future, and by what I mean by faith is hope in more peace, hope in situations, hope in your actions and kind of how you respond to those things. I get hope in that when I check my phone in a little bit that the Aggies are winning the game that they were losing when I walked into. That gives me hope, but I don't know, man. What gives you hope?
You.
Really? Okay.
Everyone that sat in that chair, and it's you know, going back to like the being selfish is the most selfless thing you can do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think these episodes are more for me
Yeah.
than for anyone else.
And what do you mean by that?
Sometimes let's go with this example. I had a good friend, Alan, on, and Alan got sober at 23 and at your age.
Okay.
Imagine if you were getting sober right now.
Yeah.
It is a crazy journey he's had. But in the last year that he was using drugs and alcohol, he injected or drank $250,000 worth of substances that year.
Wow.
And Alan's story was very relatable because he was talking about how he got to a point where he was so disgusted with himself he couldn't even look at himself in the mirror. And he had sort of like a hostage situation, where he was hoping the police were going to shoot him and kill him. And, I was raised in a Christian household, came out of the closet when I was 25 years old, had a lot of friends walk away because most of my friends were Christian. And I also had that moment in life of where I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. And after we ended the recording, we used the bathroom, and then Alan asked if he could stop and talk for a little bit, or if he could stay and talk for a little bit. And he said, what's crazy is how different our stories are. Like, you've never used heroin, you've never used cocaine, never really had any like trouble with the police. And we both came to the exact same conclusion, that we hated who we are. And we had to dramatically change our lives so that we could actually be proud of who we are and be happy and be looking forward to getting out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
And so I think, I've sat here with 150 people who have talked to me about escaping sex cults, suicide attempts, being in the military. Like, everyone's story is so unique and so different, and none of these conversations have been anything alike, which makes it hell to market this thing. But we're all the same.
Yeah.
I think we're all curious about, life after death. We all have had those moments where we feel lonely and like everyone hates us, and we've all had those moments of, wondering if we're good enough for our partner. And I think it's just been really, what Troy said about you resonates with me very much too, where I also try to play devil's advocate for everyone. So if someone wrongs me, whether it's something small or something major, I immediately go to their defense, or at least I try to. I'm not perfect at it. And I try to think about, what could be going on in their life where I happen to stumble upon them. And, I met them at a chapter of their story where they fucked up, and maybe give them a little grace.
Yeah.
So,
I definitely, dude. I can see that now for sure. 'Cause I mean, the stories that you have to, cause what is it, 180 now?
You're probably like 152, 53, somewhere in
Yeah,
there.
yeah. But I mean, the amount of, cause I mean, if all conversations were like this one, you must hear amazing things of how they were able to, I guess, live through their path, but to kind of climb over that mountain that we were kind of talking about, and to see kind of how that gives hope to your story. I think in a weird way, I don't know if it depends, with my parents. It was not really a great divorce. It was kind of a harder one than I hear some go. But I guess to see who my dad was able to become, and even to look back at my situation, with what I went through, and I kind of look at his life maybe through the same lens, if I can, and now it's like he's a great guy. He'll take his shirt off for the guy to his left, he'll mow the lady's lawn across the street if he has to. And I just wondered, like, it probably took you a lot of failure to get to that point and to become selfless like that. And I mean, even looking at my mom and the things that she had to go through, but then, even from a young life to kind of a divorce situation, but to now and the life she's kind of created. She kind of started her own business, and she had this job for a long time, and she quit and started a new job, and she built a house. And it's like, you went and did it, and you've faced way harder things than I ever have. And of course it's relative, but in my opinion, it's like you've been put through the ringer, and you still love to hear my voice. You sound so happy when you talk to me, There's those things, and you could even look at, like, I have a lot of nieces and nephews, right? But in a weird way, it's like I want to be great for them. Like, I want to be a great uncle. I want them to look up to me in a way. And if maybe, my sisters or brothers, if they're maybe in a situation or whatever that looks like, that they can always know that I'm a resource for them. And no matter what, I'm the guy that can take care of any and all of those needs, So I don't know if I don't know if they are kind of a symbol of my hope, but they're a huge part of my drive. And I guess my drive gives me a lot of hope at the end of the day,
What Was there anything else that you were hoping we would hover around today that maybe we haven't touched on yet?
I don't know necessarily. We've hit some big buckets. Hit some big buckets. I think where the conversation has been better than I would have thought. Because of course I
Were you
could.
doubting yourself a little
I was
bit?
doubting myself 100%. Well, because of course you're like, oh, I'm gonna go on a podcast, and there's so many podcasts, and of course I'm a huge football guy. I love to talk about football. I love to talk about music and other people's stories, but when you're talking about your own story, it's really fun. It's you don't talk about it a lot, and especially someone like myself, when a lot of the times when I realized that there were some areas in my life that I kind of shut out, and when I had this bad habit in college when I was a freshman. I'd kind of drink a lot, and then we'd go to the bars, or I would get home from the bars, and I would journal. And
While you were drunk.
yeah, I was drunk, and because I was lonely.
I don't know
And,
why that's so funny.
yeah, I was lonely, and I just started writing stuff down, and I started realizing what I was putting on the paper meant something, and I started there was aspects of my life that I wasn't talking about and that I forgot about almost. I had a conversation with somebody, and there's we were talking about kind of where we come from and the things we've encountered, and you look back and it's kind of that same idea of your soul is the same person always. And it felt like for me, for a lot of my life, that there was this kind of, and I kind of get a little emotional when I talk about it, but there was a kid kind of when my parents got divorced, kind of that third, fourth grade, not really sure who he was at that time. It's a lot of change and stuff like that. And I felt like I kind of went through the motions in a way, and it was almost like I had kind of shut that kid out a little bit. It was like I didn't really, show attention to that aspect of my life, to be like, hey, kind of having a conversation with your younger self of like, hey, like, I just want you to know that, like, I'm there for you, and I kind of get emotional talking about it. But just to kind of know that right now I'm going to be the best guy that I can be for us, right? For the little kid that kind of was, felt alone sometimes, or just didn't really get that attention. And now I kind of realize that, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry for kind of shutting you out, but I want you to know that I'm here for you now. And everything moving forward, like, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability to let you know that you're taken care of, if that makes sense. I hate getting emotional like this, but that's definitely a tough topic, but a good thing that I think I realized earlier on than some, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good one right there, but gotta get some water after that one.
I hope you find your thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's guitar, poetry. I think that statement I told you earlier, that most people die at 25 but aren't buried until they're 75, is a terrifying sentence.
Yeah.
We were meant, I believe that, we're all meant to, this is going to sound so cheesy, but we all are meant to do something. And I started this podcast on a whim. And I remember for the very first episode, I had an audio engineer here just helping run all of this so I could just focus on the conversation. And we had only met once. We met for coffee or beers or something, so I could sort of tell him what I wanted out of him and his time. And we were done with the recording, and he was going to leave, and I asked him if I could walk him to his car, and he said sure. And so while we're walking out, he says, you know what's interesting is I don't know you at all, but I just witnessed someone doing exactly what they were put on this planet to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that, dude, it's always stuck with me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm so happy he told me that. And I will be, for lack of a better term, I will be praying that you find sooner rather than later what you were put on this planet for.
Yeah. I hope so. It reminds me when you say that of this one story that I'll try to keep it brief. I don't whatever.
You can take your time.
Yeah, yeah. But it's one of my favorite stories of all time that I have. And I'm gonna set a scene. We were on spring break in Destin, Florida. It was us and kind of a bunch of our girlfriends. And we're there for like a week, and going really good and stuff. And it kind of was not going good at some times. At this point, my ex-girlfriend is still kind of a little bit in the picture. Not really. Really kind of a tricky situation. So I'm feeling some type of way, whatever, but trying to just, hey, I'm here on vacation. We're all having fun. It's a great time. And we go into I think it was the last night of our trip. It's a Saturday. We're leaving on Sunday, St. Patty's Day. So we go to this bar called McGuire's. I don't know if you've been there, but huge Irish pub. It's like 2 or 3 story Irish pub. Dollar bills on all the signs. There's, stations outside. They got the parking lot closed out. There's guys playing the little bagpipes walking through. They have these like huge drinks that our Uber said that we could only drink 2 of them when we black out. She lied. And so all day we probably got there at like 11:45, and we're there literally until like midnight. We're drinking, we ate lunch, we're drinking, we're having a good time. There's a band on, we're singing. It's crazy atmosphere, the huge rainstorm, power goes out, but we're staying. We just start singing, the vibe is there, everything is there. And it gets late into the night, I haven't even ate dinner or anything, but having a great time. And I'm going to set the stage a little early because this is what my mind has told me is the reason that this experience happened. So a little before the last band comes on, and the guitar player is ripping. The singer has like a saxophone he's playing. It's a vibe. And I'm right in front of the guitar player, and I'm just jamming. Like I'm head banging with him. And like he dabs me up at one point. Like the vibe is there. And out of nowhere, there's a girl, one of my best friends, sitting right beside me. And she kind of knocks into me. And I look. There's like kind of like a little scruffle going on. So I move her over. I kind of step in. I realize it's my friend group. Like they're kind of going on with this other friend group. I walk up to like a friend of that guy's. I'm like, hey, like, we're all chill. Like, we're all chill, man. Like, and he's like, we're chill. And we're kind of like, hey, man, it's not that serious. Like, let's all relax. Like, whatever. And I walk by and he tells me like there was something with like that guy's girlfriend or whatever. And I remember I'm sitting there and my friend who was like kind of the one in it, I got my arm around him. I'm like, man, it's all right. Like, you're chilling, whatever. And out of nowhere, I feel this little tap on my back. And I was just like, turn around and it's this little grandma. She had to be like 60, 65, all white hair. I see her. It looks like her family's kind of in the background waiting. And she's just like, I had to come up. She's like, I've been watching you all night. And she's like, I just had to tell you, like, your energy, like everything about you right now, like we're feeling it in the room. She's like, you're a beautiful soul. You're a beautiful person. Whatever you do in this life, she's like, I know you're going to be great at it. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. She's like, you'll be able to do that. But I felt like I had to just come tell you that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, thanks or whatever. And I remember she walked away and I was just like, what the fuck? I was like, what the fuck? And I walked like to a quiet area. I called my mom. I'm like, Mom, you'll never believe this. Like, this lady came up to me randomly and just said all this stuff. And she's like, hey, man, like, that's what's up, whatever. And I honestly like tried to find that old grandma again, and she had left. And I wanted to ask her so badly, like, why did you say that to me? Because at that point, I'm still kind of fresh on that college feel. And I'm like, whatever. I'm just like, why would you say that? Whatever. At this point, I've been studying for law school. I'd planned on that. I had taken my LSAT. I knew I had to take it again. And I'm just like, I don't know. So we're driving home, and the only thing I can think about, I'm just like, I don't want to go to law school. I was like, I can't do that. I was like, I love music, and I love other things, and I don't want to do that. And I decided, like, I got home, I was like, Mom, I'm not going to law school. Like, and I was nervous, and she was like, whatever you want to do, like, I support you. And I told my dad same thing. And, you know, the rest of my time, it was like, I'm open to God's plan, and kind of whatever presents itself to me, like the opportunity, you know, I'll take that. And, you know, it was just a crazy experience, because I still look back on it today. And even just think, you know, where would I be in life without that encouragement, you know? You know, maybe I would have tried to keep going to law school if I hadn't had somebody just let me know, like, hey, I think you're a great person. I think you could do whatever you want. So kind of along the same lines, in a sense, just without my version of a podcast, but still kind of a similar thing. I thought it was beautiful.
I hope you start talking to strangers more.
Yeah.
Because you do. You have a very powerful energy about you. And I think that if you tell something to someone, they'll believe you.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have people like, I won't say his name, but like the gentleman I mentioned earlier, where, you know, we just have no idea what they could be walking through. And, you know, how much of a difference it can make by telling someone whatever, you know, inviting them on a podcast, telling them they have a good energy about them. So I hope you return the favor.
Yeah. And I love that. I mean, as you're saying it, I'm visualizing, like, yeah, this one time I was on a podcast, this guy said I had a powerful energy, and I just started talking to strangers from there. Yeah. I just started saying what's up every day. It's encouraging, though, you know, because going back to kind of the earlier conversations, we don't know what people think about us, so we kind of tend to go with our own version of what we think, and, you know, sometimes it's not the best. So it's always good to kind of have that external motivation to just help you kind of ease through it.
Yeah.
You know?
You're welcome. A story I thought of while you were talking about the old lady is a couple months ago, me and my buddy Austin and his girlfriend Sarah went out for some burgers. My voice cracked. I'm going through puberty right now.
You're good.
And there is this group of deaf people were also eating lunch. And I have a big boisterous laugh, as you now know.
Yeah.
Every time I laughed, one of the deaf ladies would start laughing. And at first I didn't realize it, but then I laughed, and I hear her laugh, and she says, "Oh my God, that's the best laugh I've ever heard in my life. Who is that? Who is it?" I was like, "Over here, my name's David." It's like, "Thanks for the compliment."
Yeah.
But what was funny is they had there's one lady who could see, and she was the one that like drove them all there. And I don't know what her relationship was, whether she is a friend or like maybe they fucking hired her. I don't know. But as she was leading them out, all of them got plastered drunk, and I don't know why it just tickled me so much to see this group of deaf people or blind people all just drunk off their ass. But the lady who could see, she's leading them back through the restaurant into their car, and there's this one like wall, and so she points one of the guys at it, and she's like, "Walk straight." And so he walks into the wall, and he hits his head, and he goes, "Betsy, you bitch, you got me again." And like, and it was just like hilarious to see her fucking with these guys by like intentionally walking them into obstacles, and it is hilarious. I wish you could have been there.
Dude,
for
that's
it.
awesome too. That's awesome.
They were so happy, and just the fact that she was messing with them like that was just is hilarious, dude.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Good times. Well, I know we went over some heavy topics, and some of them maybe you weren't expecting, but did you have fun?
Oh, it's a blast. This has been so much fun. I think my idea of this was a little bit of this, but a little bit of just kind of generic, you know, like basic talk. But I enjoyed that you really put me on the spot sometimes. I mean, out of nowhere, it's just like, "Hey, what's the worst thing you've ever been through?" And you're just like, "Wait, what? The first question?" And you're like, "Okay, yeah, let's just..."
Hey, I waited till we were 59 minutes in.
Yeah,
it wasn't the first question.
No, that was good. And like I said, it is therapeutical in a sense just to talk with somebody. And for instance, it's like I've met you 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
3 times, and we've had that conversation like this. That's like a human connection thing. It's like, you know, with the stories and things that you've been through, and then just to connect with somebody and like talk to them about it is crazy. And it's a freeing thing, but it brings so much just like peace to hear your story and hear kind of the way that it kind of my story and your story, how they kind of come together, but at the same time, you know, things that you say that I can pick up on, and you kind of pushing me in a direction that maybe you can kind of tell in my voice, I don't want to go, but you're like, no, let's kind of go there, and just to kind of see what happens. And I love that. I love it a lot. So I've had a lot of fun.
Good. Yeah, I thought it was. I made a note to myself. What was the question when I asked you about? What was it? My notes are a bit of a mess.
No worries.
There was one question. Maybe it was when I asked you what your values were, but I made a note to myself that you crossed your arms, and I was like, "Oh, he didn't like that one."
The thing about that question, because I remember I 100% thought that would be the question, because it's just like, you know, of course to me it's like, well, what is a value? You know, like what do we value ourselves on? And I definitely got hit because I was like, oh well, what do you mean by that? Or faith, family? Like I'm not really sure. Because then you're like, am I saying the wrong thing? And it's like we're not really looking for you to say anything particular. It's just like, what is it? But that one stumped me. I was like, I don't know. I don't really know.
Well, maybe you have a few things to think about.
Oh yeah.
Will you come back on the podcast in a year or two?
I would.
I would love to have you back
I'd be on
on.
it anytime.
All right, cool. You can come back next Saturday.
Okay. Oh, okay. No.
You know what I'd love to find for you, or I hope someone finds you? I think it'd also be cool. I don't know if this exists, but if there's an in-person podcast in Austin that's all sports related.
Oh, yeah.
So you could just go yap about football for a couple hours.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. The people so I'm an Aggie. So I was like, well, maybe because we're playing today, I was like, I'll wear the jersey to the podcast. And I was like, nah, like if you have any Austin viewers, they're going to not like that podcast. So I was like, whatever. But no, that'd be so much fun.
All right, cool. We'll have you back.
For sure.
I have one more question for you. I don't know what it is. So if you don't mind, pick one of these cards, read it out loud, and let us know what your answer is.
Okay. It says, where were you when you felt most vulnerable and why?
Did we sort of talk about that already?
A little bit.
I feel like you want a different one?
Yeah.
Let's get one that's a little bit not.
Let's switch it up for a vibe. Go with this one. Okay. Ooh, this one's pretty good, it looks like. When you are near the end of your life and looking back over it, what will you be proudest of and what will you regret the most? I think I'll tackle the second part. There is such a fear for me nowadays as I've gotten a little older that I'm not reaching out to people enough. I'm not being there for people enough because in my head, I know that I need to, for instance, like we could say my mom or, I need to call my mom, my cousin, or I haven't called my niece in a while, I haven't talked to her. And I fear that there will be, especially with them being so far away from me, that I'll go through all this time and I'll think, oh, well, when my kind of career clears up a little and I have more time, I'll be able to spend time with y'all. And I fear that won't happen, that I wasn't there for people when they needed me, because I know that from people like you or Troy that I have this kind of light and I can bring that to people, but I was too involved in myself that I wasn't able to do that. And that terrifies me, with when things happen, when God, takes people because it's their time or this, that, and the other, with friendships, if I don't call somebody enough, like I don't want to lose any of that. I want to cherish every moment I have with people, and make the most of it. And even today, like I just fear that would be something I regretted, was I didn't check in on people enough. I didn't give people my time. As we get older, we start to realize time is such a valuable thing. And on Christmas, it's like, yeah, we're bringing presents and stuff, but your family just wants to see your face. They just want to know you're okay, and they want to hear about everything I've been talking to you about on this podcast. So that's something I ponder on a lot. I think about that all the time, and that would be something I'd be scared to regret the most. what would I be proudest of? I want to be a great father one day. Like I really, really, I want one day to have kids, and I want them to, you know, go through stuff that is so stupid and it's so little. And I want them to be upset about it. And, you know, I've seen this thing. It takes one man, you know, it's one thing to be a dad, but it's another thing to be a father. And to truly be somebody's light and to show them through my own struggles that I've had that there is a light and it gets better, and to raise such a, you know, a little thing into a big old person, you know, I'd be so proud. And I think, you know, I think about when I was playing football and I'd score a touchdown. There's one video I think about all the time. I was playing James Bowie. It was kind of a close game, and I'm at running back, and I took one of the house for like 48 yards, and I kind of pushed the game out a little bit. Well, this lady who's recording it, you hear my dad in the background, and he's like, "Go, Jake, like, go, Bubba, go, go." And it's like he's cracking. It's like he's about to start crying just because to me, I'm just out there. I'm tired as hell. It broke one loose, and I luckily made it to the end zone, and all I'm thinking about is I need to go get some water. But in his mind, he's like, I raised this great kid who is an athlete, and all these people in the stands, they love this kid. You know, he's doing good things at the school and stuff. And when I talk to him and when we have that conversation about my finances, I can tell he's so proud of me. And, you know, sometimes I can't be proud for myself. I'm proud for my friends, but to be a father and to like really kind of have that relationship with your children, and to let them go anywhere they want to go. I mean, that has to be such a beautiful thing. And I think that's something I really look forward to.
There's this, not the gym that we met at, but I hop around between 3 of them.
Yeah.
And at one of them, there's this dad that's always working out with his son, and his son looks like I'm so bad at guessing kids' ages, but like 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
And I think the next stranger I want to talk to is I want to go up to the kid and be like, "Isn't it pretty cool that your dad takes you to the gym?"
Yeah.
It's just every time I see them, I'm like, that is so badass.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like he's that guy at
Yeah.
the gym. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super sick, man. And you know, to that point, it's a huge memory for the kid, you know. It's you know, maybe one day he becomes this huge fitness guy, or maybe the next Arnold or whatever. And it's like, where'd you start working out? I was like, I was always there with my dad, you know.
My dad took me.
And that's a memory that they'll always have together, you know, which is amazing.
Yeah. Jake, Caffee, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate your vulnerability, your stories. You're very articulate. You could be a podcast host if you want to. I feel like you're more articulate than I am. You bring a great, positive, strong, beautiful energy to the planet, and that is something that we need more than ever these days. So keep doing you. Be more you, because we need it. To the audience, again, guys, please follow the podcast and subscribe on YouTube. And if you live in Austin, come out on Saturday, February 28th at 1 p.m. for a really powerful event that's going to get you fired up for the rest of the year. All right, everyone, let's get you out of here. Stay healthy, stay happy, have a good Saturday night, and we'll see you next week on DSNSB. Bye, guys.